Hello and
We Are Many
welcome.
podcast.
Oh, there you are. You were muted. Awkward intro. Hi, everybody.
I was like a whole sentence into that.
Yeah, you were
God
muted.
damn. Let me make myself
Welcome to the
decent.
For We Are Many podcast. Yesterday was Malcolm X Day, so we figured that the best plan for this week's podcast, rather than focusing on current events and organizing like most of our shows do, that it made the most sense to focus on the life and the legacy of Malcolm X. My name is Rob. I'm the White Panther Party Minister of Education, and I will be one of your hosts this evening.
Hi, my name's Trisha, aka Zen, Minister of Human Rights. Go ahead, whoever wants to go next.
Um, what's it? I'm Storm. Not great at introductions. Usually people will end up saying stuff that I was meant to say and like, oh, I'll remember. So who fucking knows? We'll see where we go, but I'm one of the hosts.
And we can announce that you are now the Secretary of Human Rights for the United Panther Movement as well.
Yeah. but I'll toxic modesty my way out of avoiding acknowledging my own accolades. But yeah, no, recently been voted into the secretary position for human rights. Just a fucking hefty
Is
responsibility. I'm not anxious at all.
is Comrade Rob trying to introduce himself, or what? What's up here?
Yeah, I'm the official other Rob and Minister of Robs, but I broke my doorknob on my bathroom, so I'm trying to figure out how to get this working real quick. So that's why my camera's off. I'm trying to get my door. Uh-oh,
My
I got an
bad.
intro.
My
Got an
bad.
intro for the doorknob. I'll be on in a second. Just give me a little bit.
All
Right
right.
on. Good.
All right. The Rob of Robs will return shortly.
Yeah. Leader of the company.
So, did anybody share that link to the Facebook or anything, or any of the chats?
No,
YouTube link?
I don't know, but I hear groovy music coming from somewhere and I have no idea where it's coming from. Is that the stream music?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's groovy. I like it.
It's the copyright-free background
I will
stuff.
say.
Yeah, because if we use copyrighted shit, then they'll get mad and take down the video. All right, I'm gonna post this link in Facebook. It's so weird doing it this way because usually, like we can see if somebody's watching or like, check the comments or whatever.
I mean, I'm on computer. Can't I still just join the restream and have it open in another window?
We're not through Restream. We're just directly.
Oh, we not? Is it just Zoom? Oh, it's just Zoom's live stream. I see. I forget the Zoom can do that.
Yeah.
Zoom has too much functionality for what's meant to just be a video conferencing app. It creeps me out sometimes. I swear to God. I'm just like, what? Where does all this functionality come from? You don't see MS Teams doing this. MS Teams works like so amazingly. You can't even get into a call and like have functional audio like out there. Actually, no, Zoom's that bad too. So I guess they have something going for each other then. You missed my foray into these Zoom chats, Rob, where I like basically spent 45 minutes of a book club trying to get a point across, and I was too exhausted to type it, and I couldn't get my audio to work. I didn't get my audio to work until after like massive delays because I'm a problem child, like the AC/DC song. Megadeth actually did a cover of that live once.
I don't know if my internet connection is shit or if Facebook is fucking up, but I can't even get Facebook to load.
There could be a server related issue, and so it might not even be you. I mean,
Okay,
do
there
you
we go.
wirelessly connect to your router though, or are you wired up?
Well, I mean, it varies. Right now, I'm wireless though, and the last podcast we did, I was wireless. But I mean, I haven't really been doing the streams upstairs like I was, so I mean, that's ultimately why. My laptop just lives in the band room now, so I guess so do I.
See, I don't get why like some of these more online integrated ones, especially Restream, uses still so much data because you think it would be like taking on some of the bandwidth of actually broadcasting it, and it's just your video camera stuff that goes across. I used 15 gigs in one stream. Well, that's fine.
Well, I mean, it's because okay, so like it does work the way that you're describing, but it's 1080p video and high def audio. Like they're big
It's the
files
60, it's
because
doing 60 frames per second stuff. That's what I think it might be.
yeah, yeah, like
Because that
it's
fucking
a
kills
lot.
you. Because like my
Yeah,
webcam is unusually good on this computer. I'm like I think it might be 60. I'm too used to webcams being 30 frames per second and like potato things that do 720p if you're lucky, but usually 480. But yeah, I got screwed over by UFHD, ultra full HD, 60 frames per second. Uses up like 5 gigs in a matter of 3 minutes.
that's nuts.
It's not even the highest resolution my camera did. I didn't even notice. If I knew my camera did a higher resolution, I'd have recorded the protest stuff in 8K. Oh, it's 8K 30 frames per second though, so maybe I'm better off doing it in UFHD because it's 60.
Right.
Fucking 8K though. Who the fuck needs an 8K video?
Right. Oh, that's probably part of my issue is that I'm actually watching the YouTube stream in that tab. That probably don't help.
It's all good. I just now got it shared onto the Facebook page.
I
And
already
When
had it shared on the Facebook page.
I feel like it should be like taken both as an honor and also of a bit of a nose that when you type in for We Are Many, it comes up with the All That Remains song rather than the actual fucking podcast. I'm like, okay, I'm flattered, but give me the thing I'm actually after.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because that was part of like where the title came from. Hello.
There we go. No, how do I? There we go. There's chat.
you want to
Oh.
some of the Rob
But
links into the tab here. Video and the chicken.
your audio is just.
Oh, I think it was coming off of the mic. Is that better?
Oh, we
All
lost.
right.
Rob.
Well, I guess let's dive into the material. Who wants to kick this off? I mean, I know you guys were talking about a bunch in the chat.
What's it? Get. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to get stay on top to work on Windows, and I keep forgetting the keybind. I mean, like just a sort of like a bit of what would be the um what's that word that starts with over an overview? Like an overview that I would say is sort of like there's two components when it comes to assessing Malcolm X from the modern period that we're really looking at. And obviously the one is the most obvious. It's kind of like the actually I guess they're both elephants in the room, but this is the bigger elephant. That's obviously assessing the importance of him back in his day, what that means, what he stood for. As well as also any criticisms anyone might have of him as well. Like it's got to be a balance to and fro. We can't just brown nose our like inspirations. Malcolm X himself would be one to speak ill of that. But the what's it? You also have the importance of Malcolm X, what he represented, the positions he pushed forward, and what we can learn and develop from him, to how that relates, especially now to the very critical situation that we are in as far as politics goes inside the Imperial Core.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I mean, like, when people talk about Malcolm X as like a controversial figure, they're usually talking about this like whitewashed, like almost, well, not almost, but this outright like afraid mentality about it. And if you really like dive into the conditions of the era and you really dive into what he was saying, like all he wants is self-determination, right? Like we're not talking about anything fucking crazy. And he admitted or acknowledged, I guess, rather that elections weren't going to get us there. You know, like I mean, nothing that he was saying should have been that controversial. The only reason that he's portrayed that way is because it scared white America.
Yep. Precisely.
Well, one of my favorite Malcolm X quotes is that if you want a world where the black man can live at peace with the white man, then America must be destroyed. There will be no reconciliation between the black man and the white man until America no longer exists. It was good to have a favorite quote.
Well, the entire system rests upon the shoulders of races. Was built on slavery.
Your audio keeps going like on and off. It feels like I need the Enigma code to figure it out.
Yeah, it's like really muffled sounding.
It's like you're covering a microphone or something. Or it's auto gain screwing you out of existence.
It might be getting because nothing blocking the mic now. I actually set my phone down in front of me so I wouldn't accidentally put my finger over the mic again. What the fuck? Oh. Do not know.
I
Might
don't
be
know either.
bandwidth constraints.
Yeah, that's why I killed the backing music too. I don't know, like usually I don't have any issues like this at all. This whole stream has been like, saying that I don't have permission to go live. I don't understand. And then
His admin starts fucking Zoom call, gets banned from streaming live.
Right? It's like, wait a fucking minute. As owner of the account, how can you not give yourself permission? Come on, Restream. But here's what it is.
Wait, did we get kicked? I just got back. What happened?
No, we're still running.
Oh, we're still running.
We're just
Alright.
flying by the heels.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we've been having some tech issues. We're only on YouTube because according to Zoom, I don't have permission to live stream. So, like through Restream like we normally do. So instead of being on all 4 platforms that we usually are, we're only on YouTube.
Yeah. Nice. All right, so can you guys catch me up? We're talking about Malcolm X. Was because of his birthday?
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, Malcolm X Day was yesterday. And so I when it when you're unsure of yourself, pontificate. So I just popped an overview out there on sort of like the dynamics of both past and present sort of reflection on him, because I feel people either focus on one or the other. And while I do think present interpretation is the most important, people don't actually focus on that one the most. They focus on the past. I think we should drive it as both because they're so relatable. You can't have one or the other. How can you understand the future implementation of something if you don't understand where it comes from? And how can you understand something where it comes from if you don't understand how it relates to today? So it's a to and fro relationship between the two. So I think they have to come in tandem. Start separating them all, and you just stick people in their little boxes, and it either becomes Malcolm X is a thing of yesterday, which I mean he was, but then they will think of it as a just of yesterday, and some people might try and block it out and avoid it because of avoidance of anything revolutionary that we seem to see a lot from the middle class mindset in the first world. And then you have the other types that will try and act like, I mean, Malcolm was ahead of his day, but I don't mean like in the respectful way. I mean more in the way of trying to say he wasn't for his time and now he's acceptable to push forward now. And it's like obviously not true either. What he was saying back then was just as legitimate then as it is now. So it's that to and fro balance.
Yeah.
As of reception by the public.
Mm.
I mean, a
Well,
lot of it, like his words got twisted to make it sound like he was an anti-white, racist or something like that, is how the media tried to portray him, when that wasn't the case at all. It just was a situation where his trust had to be earned, and that didn't happen until he went to Mecca. When he went to Mecca,
oh, sorry.
When he went to Mecca, he met Muslims of other ethnicities and was welcomed and treated with genuine comradely love, treated as family. And he realized, like, okay, maybe there are some white and, other ethnicities of revolutionaries that I can actually work with and trust. It's a matter of
Yeah.
being understandable for the time frame.
And
the shit
sorry. Oh, sorry, I keep stumbling over you. I do want to sort of clarify something for people though about Mecca and why that would show a relation around whiteness. To white people in Europe, Arabs get treated as brown, but even that's actually a bit more of a modern thing because whiteness and blackness and brownness are a bit of a mess. To black people, Arabs are white, and not just on a like from just their perspective kind of thing. The actual like relationship, the Arab slave trade and stuff, is a white to black relationship, and so it was a place where it was ended up being a learning experience of the sort of disparaginess of whiteness. And Kwame Ture went through a very similar kind of experience to Malcolm X of starting off as Kwame Ture was more of a cultural nationalist than Malcolm X was, but having that sort of like untrustworthiness of white people, thinking that they will just decimate the movement. You could never trust them, can't be near them. Fuck it. Like a race war is going to happen anyway because they're going to cause it. So let's prepare for it kind of mindsets. And then as they start to think on the more international scale of things, you see both of them shape up, and that's where their golden eras both start to click in, and you start seeing them dropping the beat on revolutionary theory. Malcolm X, unlike Kwame Ture, comes straight from the lumpen proletariat. He may speak with the fucking absolute stout respect of a gentleman, but he comes straight from the poor. He didn't even know how to read or write until he was in prison, and he taught himself.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to speak on when it came to the development of, Malcolm X going from was it Malcolm Little to Malcolm X to I'm probably gonna say it wrong. El Haj Malik Shabazz. Is that
El
was
Haj
that right?
Malik
Did I get it
Shabazz.
right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, So like I believe he came from the South originally. But his lumpen background that, I believe he was a pimp for and a sex worker for a period of time. And when he went to prison, this is a credit to give to the Nation of Islam, because I mean you can't really talk about this transition of Malcolm X without mentioning the Nation of Islam, where it was a big influence on him. And this is where like the lumpen, when you're trying to when someone could help with your needs, either physical, mental, emotional needs, then you're gonna 9 out of 10 gravitate towards that type of help. and that's what the Nation of Islam was really good at, was reaching out to people who were addicted to drugs, or sex workers, or people who were really big into crime, and trying to help them turn their life around. Yes, they did use hardcore cultural nationalism and idealism to try to, as a tool and a method, but at the same time, they were there materially as well, trying to help. So that's a credit that is due. That's something that I think all revolutionaries should try to take heed to, is trying to, when we're dealing with people across the board, and being able to uh, be there materially for them, we're more likely to win the masses on our side. So yeah, so like his development going on for that, I think that I'm glad Rob Hall jumped on here. He could
Yeah.
they could speak on that, but I know what a Black Red Guard referred to Malcolm X as the left wing of the Nation of Islam, and Elijah Muhammad was more of the right wing conservative of the Nation of Islam, and that's how a lot of their differences were more along that political spectrum, and amongst other things that later came out, obviously, about Elijah Muhammad. But yeah, watching Malcolm maintain that principled line throughout his development is really, really like, and going against the grain, being in part of this organization that was at its prime. The Nation of Islam was at its peak, going up into, the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And they had a lot of influence in the Black communities, where he spoke out against anything that was being done wrong within that organization. Perhaps to his own detriment. I don't want to get into I don't know any conspiracy theories about what, ended up ending the life of Malcolm X. So I don't, I'm not going to speak on that part. Maybe someone who's got a more hardcore depth of what they think happened. If it was, because I know, was it 2 years ago that the note from the detective in New York said that, the police set him up and they hired those guys, and it wasn't the Nation of Islam that ended his life. But
then isn't
yeah.
there the thing with Farrakhan having fucking FBI bodyguards? I don't know. But I will say, Nation of Islam, I mean, considering an organization that kind of started as like a mess with like an unspecified, possibly socialist, but also conservative ideology, it isn't too much surprise that the Nation of Islam got bogged down into fascism, but like ungrounded fascism that kind of doesn't know its ass from its mouth. Malcolm represented an aspect of the lumpen that get pulled into these groups a lot, and it's something I've talked about actually on stream before. The danger of things like the SA and stuff like that. Because it is commendable when people help out the lumpen, but it's a tactic used by right-wing organizations to try and like take advantage of our revolutionary tendencies. Because this is the thing I've said: the people who work with us, the people who exploit and use us, or the people who refuse to work with us, all three of them know that we're too revolutionary and we either need to be tamed, or in the case of the middle fucker, oh, that was coincidental, but it works. The fucking the case of the middle fucker, they go out of their way to amplify the overactive revolutionary tendencies so that we end up engaging in unprincipled acts of terror and other stuff, thinking that it brings about socialism. And Malcolm X rejected that. And it's a hard thing to reject. I mean, eventually you're going to realize the writings on the wall. That's why Hitler ended the SA in the early 30s. But like the situation and wagwan with it all, like sometimes you ain't gonna realize till later. Malcolm realized earlier before he or any of his closest comrades that were on his side were caught up in atrocities, and he broke through the grain and he showed that no, like what this org is supposed to be representing can exist actually principally. Let's be actual socialists, and he was made a pariah for it. Whether or not the Nation of Islam killed them doesn't matter. They blacklisted and targeted him and made him a fool of the organization. They tried everything they could because he made that organization have to actually mean something to the people and not just be an organization that, while it does help people, it only does it to satisfy its own cultish ideology and doesn't do it to actually end the people's problems. It works like a charity does, constantly gets funds, and it feeds the people with some of them and pockets the rest. But I forgot the thing I meant to say. It stresses the importance of like us needing to actually be providing for the lumpen proletariat, because it shows that we are so willing to learn when you feed us. Like, if these organizations are jackasses compared to like fucking principled Marxist organizations, or at least I fucking hope so. The Imperial College doesn't have the greatest record, but you got to prove against the grain. But we should have way better fucking like success rates if we really go down there and meet people where they're at. But too many people have that sort of like, oh, I'm a pontificative intellectual. Let me come down and speak to you like you're thick as pig shit. I'm going to explain economic conundrums to you like you're a fucking 9-year-old looking at like a coloring book. It's nauseating, but I've been rambling. I'm sorry.
Rob Hall, I see you got your hand up. What's up, Cameron?
I'm doing all right. I'm gonna touch really quick on Malcolm real quick, and then NOI. Then I'm gonna touch really quick on what. Sorry, I'm gonna touch on what. Damn, I'm took on a cigarette. I'm gonna touch on what Kara said about the SA. Okay, with Malcolm, I'm sure if he's listening, sure what I'm talking about. Late last year, I shot a video from the African Revolutionary Nationalists. I don't like any conspiracy theories either, but it does kind of make sense in a way that this revolutionary nationalist said that he thinks the Nation of Islam was always a honey trap set up by the feds, because it was to take new African people who might have revolutionary potential to an organization that was very conservative. Elijah's never a revolutionary at all. He wasn't. And
Yeah,
the
we talked
founder
about
of
that last year.
the founder of the NOI, Wallace Farad, he was pretty much like a white dude. After 4 years of setting it up, he set up the organization. 4 years later, mysteriously disappears. And it's weird how the NOI would attack former members who come out on their bullshit, but never against the Klan, never against the neo-Nazis. They actually invited George Lincoln Rockwell to their convention, the American Nazi Party, literally. Okay, with the SA, and I've said this before, it is a deadly mistake for communists to ignore the lumpen, because the Communist Party of Germany did the same thing in the 20s and early 30s. They followed Marx and Engels' backward line in the lumpen. So the NSDAP, with the quasi-socialist rhetoric, was able to organize a lumpen to the SA. And when Hitler took power in January of 1930, they said, okay, the National Revolution's won. That's time for the social revolution. They won those quasi-socialist rhetoric promises, which Hitler balked at. You got the long knives happened a year later. So it's a deadly mistake to ignore the lumpen, because like Frantz Fanon, Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, among others, said, if you don't organize the lumpen, the enemy will organize them as mercenaries against you.
I thought Night of the Long Knives was a few years later. I thought it was 36.
No, Hitler took power January 30th, 1933. Night of the Long Knives was June, I believe, June or July of 1934. Because again, they won those quasi-socialist promises.
No, yeah, it was the Crystal Knocked in 36. Sorry,
38. That's 38. Crystal Knock.
38. Fuck's sake, I don't know.
No, that was the thing, though. The SA, Ernst Röhm and all them, one of the quasi-socialist rhetoric promises made, Hitler balked at it because the capitalists, the industrialists, Hindenburg, and the generals lean on him, say, look, you deal with this or we're going to remove you from power. Because Röhm wanted the German military disbanded and made an SA to be the people's military of Germany. They wanted the landlords' land go to the peasants of Germany. Very quasi-socialist rhetoric, which Hitler balked at.
Well, I just wanted to pin this in that Wallace Farrar Muhammad didn't disappear. He left on the mothership. That was no, I mean I wasn't trying to make a mockery, but that's what they say. He left on the mothership. So
Well,
Maybe
that's
Because
what.
they're all fucking Scientologists, and Scientologists is full of a bunch of like fascist, white supremacist, like loony bins. And they were like, yeah, L. Ron Hubbard, the white supremacist pedophile. This is my guy.
damn.
No, BRG did. The BRG did say that the NOI was basically a cult. A lot of their beliefs were very metaphysical, and like that theory came. I was talking to Shanti about last year that it's a honey trap to get new African people that have revolutionary potential to that organization, that cult, which was very conservative. Because Elijah wanted petty bourgeois capitalism for the black community. Elijah's not going for
Yeah.
socialism and revolution now.
No, but it shows one thing that's like a bit of a colliding point for both petty bourgeois and conservatism in the black community. And that's that whenever you hear those two things, you don't ever really tend to hear blackness or black stuff. It's always fucking comes across white. Like whenever when it actually would be someone that would be considered conservative to their actual African heritage, that ends up being the progressive element of it. Conservatism and the now new African community always ends up tying into some form of whiteness and ends up oppressing like actual blackness. Like that seems to be just a really common theme with these kinds of fucking like, well, do you know what? I am of the team honey trap, so I'll say in this honey trap situation, but you know, in general, with a lot of this sort of like cultural nationalist and social chauvinist sort of stuff, it stinks of that kind of fucking parlay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
not saying.
think
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I think that the on the cultural nationalist aspect of the NOI, why it would be something that would be something to gravitate towards when like the entire existence of New African people and the imperial core has been strict oppression and nothing but subjected to whiteness, and this ideology flipped that on his head and was like, look, black people are gods and white people are the devil. Like that's literally what it teaches. And it's like, well, shit, that makes sense. White people been oppressing us the whole time. Like, why am I praying to a white God or a white Jesus when this person right here, Elijah Muhammad, is claiming to be the apostle of God and speaking that the original people of what they would call Asia, they also call themselves Asiatic, and they said, well, if you come to tell me that I'm not like this lower class person, I'm actually a god, I might listen to you. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that makes me feel good. You know what I mean? And that's where I think a lot of the power, it's an alternative to the norm of white supremacy. Doesn't mean it's right. The ideology doesn't mean it's right. But if you had to choose in this time in this era, then if I was black, I'd be like, shit, I'm choosing this one.
Can I add to that,
Oh,
Rob? Can I add to that real quick? Can I add to that
Yeah,
real
for
quick?
sure.
Rob just said, okay, Worthy Muhammad, Elijah's son, who took over after Elijah's death, that transformed the original NOI to a Sunni organization. While I was in prison, I was reading some of his books. So I dabbled in Islam in prison. And he made a good point, though. He goes, what was insidious about that was, he goes, my father said, stop praying to a white Jesus and basically pray to a white Allah, Wallace Farad Muhammad.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's from Elijah's own son, Worth Dean, was talking about that, how insidious it was. We saw the white God from Jesus to Wallace Farad, basically.
yeah. A lot of people push the theory. I don't know what the correct line is, that Wallace Farad was an FBI informant. Not Wallace Farad, but Farad Muhammad was a was an FBI informant, basically sent into Detroit and Chicago to basically disturb any of this, movements of the black workers and any left type rebellions that were going on, and try to like disrupt it and gravitate people towards something else that was more controlled. That's a narrative that pushed. But if you ask somebody that was, that's from the Nation of Islam, they say that Wallace Farrar Muhammad was mixed. His father was from Arabia, and he came over here to bring Islam to the West and try to turn black people into Muslims. And so if that's the case, then it was also okay. People that support Elijah Muhammad, who also came from a mixed background, and so did Malcolm X. They all came from mixed backgrounds.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. There's a lot of evidence that Farad Muhammad, the founder of the NOI, was actually high caste Pakistani. Again, a white person, basically.
Yeah, Brahmin.
Yeah, right. I mean that's part of mythology. That's part of mythology that his mom came from Arabia. That's the mythology of the organization. It's more that he's high caste from Pakistan, where he came from.
Right. I'm just going off what they say versus what everyone else says.
Yeah. What's interesting too, by the way, is also too, though, we got to remember the African Blood Brotherhood, which was like a proto Black Panthers back in the day. When NOI was when the Moors Science Temple and NOI was founded, you had the African Blood Brotherhood, which was a very left communist, like a proto Black Panthers. So think about that.
Yeah, they say that Walls Farrar Muhammad was studied with the Moors before he started, or was it Elijah Muhammad? One of them was also a Moor prior to them joining the NOI, but there's a lot of connections there. They say a lot of the teachings go back to, Masonry, Freemasonry, and things of that nature. And then they synthesized it with Islam and other things.
We know a version of the Quran NOI uses actually. It's the Ahmadiyya sect. You know where the Ahmadiyya sect comes from? Pakistan.
Well, you drawing connections.
High caste, that's a Brahmin. That's a white person, basically. Indo-Aryan.
Well, not even basically, like they are white. That's their relationship to caste in their society. Like the Brahmin actually fetishize paleness and whiteness, and it is like a really big thing as to why they actually got along quite well with the British, unlike other castes. Interesting, that one.
Yeah, but they're the literal descendants of the Indo-Aryan invaders of India, the literal colonizers. That's their direct
ancestors. Yeah. But what I was going to say in response is, no, I don't disagree that it's attractive. I just think it's like it's contradictory to like the essence of blackness and the black struggle. Rather than it being liberatory, it actually just sort of like it ends up like leaving people shackled, thinking that there would ever be a solution of shackling the other race, as if that would ever like A, even succeed, and B, if it did ever get anyone anywhere. So it's like I see why it would be attractive, just as like fascists telling any like lumpen proletarian that if they pick up a gun and fight, like we can have a socialist utopia and stuff like that. It's just that I feel that there's an essence of like this form of cultural nationalism that seems to crop up a lot. It's not just an NOI exclusive thing, but also like the way the black petty bourgeoisie seems to get involved in things, it almost stinks of whiteness a lot of the time. Me and Shanti have talked about this a lot. Just seem to just be like a chronic issue. And then these people tend to be the ones that also gatekeep poorer African people to the access to their culture. Well, obviously, white people are doing that even more, but this is like the next step down from that, to clarify.
A lot of these ideological differences are actually like the root of that whole feud that ended up happening between Elijah and Malcolm. Elijah was pissed that Malcolm was doing real political work, serving the community on the ground. Let's just be bluntly fucking honest about it. His focus was definitely in the black petty bourgeoisie and bourgeoisie direction, whereas Malcolm's was excuse me, there's tenants over here being wrongfully evicted, and we need to go stand up and protect them while they protest this. Or, hey, we need to go over here and stand with these people against police brutality. They had a very significant, very strong militant arm of the Nation of Islam, and he used it properly for community security. And one of the last straws breaking the camel's back there was when Elijah had ordered him to not speak on JFK's assassination, and he called chickens coming home to roost, not to demonize JFK himself, but rather pointing out the systemic issues here that literally were coming back upon the government itself, that it was reaping what it sowed. He was making an existential point, and it got really misinterpreted by Elijah as well as by some of the media, and he got pissed. That's when he started blacklisting Malcom and basically put him on suspension of, like, you're not allowed to speak in public on behalf of the Nation of Islam, etc. And it's because he was pissed that Malcom was pushing back, even though he respected Elijah's authority within the organization's hierarchy. He didn't agree with him and wanted to use the Nation of Islam's resources to actually help protect and defend the community. Elijah wanted no part of that and was like, I don't like your political shit here. He wanted it to be focused more on converting people to the religion. And it's like, then why even build up the militant arm that you have for community defense? What are you defending in your community if you're not actually reaching out to people and going, what are the problems here that need solved that we can protect you from? Malcom fucking had it right. And I don't blame him for being like, all right, as much as I love the Nation of Islam, fuck this shit, because this work needs to be done. He saw the bigger picture, that the movement itself was bigger than himself. And bigger
If
than
anything,
And like
you
I
could
said
make the
earlier too, though,
criticism. If anything, you could make the criticism that Malcolm stuck by the Nation of Islam for a bit too long, way too long, in my opinion. He should have saw the writing on the wall as soon as Elijah started being an old dickhead and fucking tried to get as many principled people to go their own way.
like I said earlier too, as well, like the one nationalist pointed out last year, it's like Elijah, they go after people that come out in the bullshit, would not go after the Klan, again, inviting the American Nazi Party to their convention.
Yep.
Malcolm was fierce that. Malcolm was still an organization that happened. When Lincoln Rockwell and his, little stormtroopers were there, Malcolm was furious over it. They were invited to that in the first place.
It'd be interesting. Fast forward today, I know this is not about Malcolm himself, but the Nation of Islam. What happens when Louis Farrakhan passes away? Because I don't know how he's still alive. He's been through. He's like 90, and he's got like 10 different cancers. There was like he had like a poison. Someone tried to poison him and all types of stuff. But it'd be interesting what happens after that. Yeah, because they had relationships with Libya and Gaddafi. I mean, that's probably about as close left. I think Farrakhan was a little bit more left than Elijah Muhammad. But
I mean, Gaddafi isn't going very left, given Gaddafi invited Nazis and stuff to his country plenty of times.
Yep.
Oh, and helped Israel attempt to and successfully assassinate Arab leaders and revolutionaries. Gaddafi's got a record. Oh boy.
20th anniversary of the Libyan Revolution in the late 80s. There was literal fascists from Canada, British National Front, invited to Libya. The Canadian fascists, who founded the Heritage Front in the 90s, made a documentary of it, how they went to the celebrations for it in Libya. Oh, and Farrakhan, by the way, too, in the 80s, Farrakhan had good relations with Tom Metzger, the leader of White Aryan Resistance.
wow, the more you learn on For We Are Many.
We need the animation, the more you know with the star. Can we add that as like a video source? Because that would be great for Restream when we're on Restream.
I know you're a bit younger, but in the late 80s in Portland, Oregon, you had some boneheads who killed Ethiopian exchange student. And the dude that Morris Dees took the court over it for, liability and all that, Tom Metzger, White Aryan Resistance from Southern California. Him and Farrakhan had good relations in the 80s because Tom Metzger was pushing the whole third positions bullshit back then.
Wow. This is a little different, but I learned recently that was the Prince of Ethiopia that started the Rastafarians they were unaliving communists.
Yeah.
That, jeez.
Fred
The
Hampton literally
slaughter and the Dirge, yeah.
Fred Hampton literally called the Emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie. Fred Hampton called him that little puck in Ethiopia.
Wow.
I love Fred Hampton. He just doesn't fuck around. He's a guy who's just sick of everyone's shit, and I love it. I love it every fucking moment of it.
Yeah.
I will say though as well with Gaddafi, he like wrote letters to the EU going like, "Oh, black people are going to outnumber us soon. Maybe we should like be friends and stuff. Maybe we should work together." They'll have strength in numbers, so they'll eventually technologically advance past us too when they get numbered enough. It was like crap like that. He said that they breed like monkeys or something. I can't remember what it was
I can tell you the
exactly.
quote. I can tell you the quote. In his green book, he says that black people or Africans, the Africans took over the world because they're in a hot climate and they don't have to work and they fuck a lot.
Yeah. And what's it? Also, his ideology is called the third way.
Yep.
Yeah,
Third way, third
I'll
position.
never share anything of a picture of Gaddafi ever again. Thank you.
Right. Analyzing Gaddafi is definitely a very hard dialectical moment because you can look at shit that he did that economically benefited the country massively. And the decline since his death is visible. He was doing shit like establishing their own monetary standard and splitting away from like the World Bank and stuff like that, and people were gaining economic independence, but he was also a racist piece of shit. It's one of those fun situations where you can look at where somebody is both absolutely fucked up in many manners, but there's other manners where it's like, okay, that's something that could be, enacted in other manners, as far as the economic.
It's also just about learning the way that like fascism and social fascism also in this case operates. Because I like especially on the case of social fascism, a lot of the time they have to copy a lot of the shit we're doing. I mean, the DPRK is a fucking fine example. Everyone get people on the edge of their seats when you start mentioning the DPRK because you deny they're a socialist and you get like an email from Jason Unruh calling you a cuck or something. But I don't know, like the the DPRK. I mean, like, they're a fascist country. I ain't gonna fucking beat around the bush on it. I'm a fucking Maoist. I'm gonna say what I think about it. But they do have elements of socialism that exist in their society as their social fascism has to permit. Otherwise, their most armed population in the entire world is in individuals being armed, not America's way of cheating. That doesn't count as the most armed population in the world when 10% of your population owns like 50% of the rifles. Piss off, America. Um, Being the most armed population means everyone's got a gun, like in Korea. And if you piss off those people that all have guns, you're gonna get killed. And this is a problem that fascism kind of has for itself. Even a lot of right-wing fascism, Nazism didn't have a socialism for the working class. But if you were white and middle class, oh boy, you'd be living it up. You'd be having a pretty decent time. Well, until 39, but you were having a pretty decent time at first. There was that whole like, we need to invade countries, otherwise our economy will crash again because we haven't actually fixed the Great Depression part. But don't worry about that bit. You gotta live time like it's light, right? You don't want to be the what's that fucking like the hair and the fucking thing that the chicken or something that Jordan Peterson goes on about. I don't know. I'm taking the piss, but
Lobster theory. Lobster theory.
Lobster theory dropping. But so like elements. Lenin talks about this in like class society. Economies are a fuck, and you don't really have like a solidly consolidated economy because capitalism doesn't care about that. Why the fuck would it? If it cared about that, we'd all have like hyper automated agriculture that just provides fucking enough food within the country. Every country on this earth, bar a few exceptions, usually because we've bombed it or destroyed its environment, is capable of growing enough food to last. There are a few exceptions to that, but usually it's the case. Why the UK needs to get half its food from the Caribbean and fucking Africa and America, I don't fucking know. But well, I do, but like I'm being a cunt. But the fucking what's it? You know, so, like, if capitalism wanted to develop those things, it would. Agriculture actually still has a primitive, almost peasant-like existence in the farm ways that it exists, but it's been bourgeoisified. You know, razzle dazzle, the capitalists started owning it, but farm hands and farm workers are like proletarianizations of the peasant and the serf. And so you have that kind of weird relationship going on where things haven't really been brought up to scratch. They've just sort of given it like a light software update. It's like doing the kernel hack in Windows Vista that allows you to run Windows 10 applications on it, just to show how cursed it sounds. But anyway, so different socioeconomic systems can coexist. Like that's a running theme with class society, given that pretty much every class revolution that seeks to maintain class can't be fucking asked to clear all the vestiges of the previous society. That's why patriarchy still exists, if you ever wondered. That could have gone the first change of social system, but we're not smart. Or we are, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But and so in like fascist states, because they do a lot of quasi-socialist stuff and the people that they advertise it to the most, they have to buy them off in some way. You do tend to see certain aspects of socialist systems there, and that's why the more puritanical of them that usually tends to get Night of the Long Knifed, those ones tend to have like these more outlandish hybridizations of socialism and capitalism. If anyone's ever fucking cursed their brain and read Strasser, and I mean Otto, not Gregor. Gregor's just mini Hitler. Otto Strasser, he I mean, you'd think he was like, what if Khrushchev actually wrote theory? Like his ideas are very similar to the fascism of the Soviet Union post 1956 with the revisionists. And there's a lot of comparability to that because that puritanical hybridization that makes industrialists shit themselves heavily. It ends up getting churned out usually. The only reason it didn't in the Soviets' case is someone I could dissertate on for hours is because of a peculiar economic situation with them. And so, like, yeah, I mean, Gaddafi's society definitely had socialistic aspects that existed in it, but it was a bourgeois state with a bourgeois government and a fascist party leading it. Sorry for the long diatribe. I think about this stuff a lot.
It's all good. Sorry, my dog's interrupted you.
Your dog has like permission to interrupt everyone, even if like I was gonna deny it.
She's a little princess. She doesn't either way, even when I tell her to stop. But that said, I'm pretty sure I know what she's demanding is to go outside and go potty. So I'm sorry, I'll have to excuse myself for just a minute and take the dogs out. Excuse me.
Back to you, Rob Quarters.
Right. Roll that beautiful bean footage. Rob Quarters.
You're muted, by the way, Rob,
Yo.
just in case you are actually dropping the beat.
What's up?
Last time I checked, it was the sky, but it's turned dark since then, and you never know what happens. Like night comes.
Just making sure you're still alive.
Yeah, I'm still alive. How about you guys? Everybody good?
Yep. Yep.
I'm
just
boiling to death because this room is just unusually hot. Because I think people inside the building are shutting their windows and not turning off the heating aircon thing. And so even though mine's off, it doesn't matter. I'm not allowed peace. Well, isn't war peace? That smart man called Georgina Orwelli or whatever the fuck said it. I'm sure he knows what he's talking about.
Orwellian?
Orwelli.
Giorgio Orwellian?
George Orwelli.
Yeah. The big brother state is when you can't have AC.
See,
all right.
brothers are just assholes. I thought like the helicopter was like dad. Shouldn't it be like Big Daddy? Can we call the government Big Daddy? Like,
No. No, that just reinforces the government's daddy complex, and we're not here for that.
it would be great at like conferences and stuff because no one will be able to hold themselves back from laughing every time you mention it.
All right, I've got to take these
Always
dogs out.
remember, Daddy's watching.
Gross. All right, I'll be back in a moment. I'm gonna mute, but what was that?
I was gonna say, wasn't there a second subject that was on today's agenda?
Well, there's a few different videos that we have of Malcolm that I popped in the Zoom chat to be able to screen share and listen to him speak on certain things in his own words. Just a fucking minute. So Rob Gorders, if you can grab one of those videos, maybe we can play one of those for a bit and bring up some more stuff to analyze and dissect. I shall be back momentarily.
Well, I guess let's start with the ballot or the bullet.
That's a
go
great
wrong
place
with
to
that.
shoot.
Let me see if my fucking internet's gonna cooperate though. So I mean, so how do we want to do this? Should I just start at the beginning? I mean, I'm assuming we're not gonna listen to the whole 53-minute speech.
Yeah, damn.
Just throw it right in the middle and just, let the spirit take it off from there.
Yeah, just find somewhere
All
in the
right,
middle
so
and we'll see how
I'll
much
do
you
like
fire us up.
26 minutes in. That seems like a good spot. Let's see here.
Who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't
Audio's
see
a bit
an American
mumbled.
dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited.
Is it muffled for everybody or just Kara?
I could hear it clear.
Huh.
It sounds like it's coming for like someone's asshole. It sounded like Zen did earlier when she was like bumming out, but like when she was actually still audible.
I don't know.
From America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. If you go to jail, so what? If you're black, you were born in jail. If you're black, you were born in jail. In the North as well as the South. Stop talking about the South. As long as you're south of the Canadian border, you're south. Don't call Governor Wallace a Dixie governor. Romney is a Dixie governor. $22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. They see that the whites are so evenly divided that every time they vote, the race is so close, they have to go back and count the votes all over again. And which means that any bloc, any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who'll go to the White House and who'll stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You can keep Johnson in Washington, D.C., or you can send him back to his Texas cotton patch. You're the one who sent Kennedy to Washington. You're the one who put the present Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. The whites were evenly divided. It was the fact that you threw 80% of your votes behind the Democrats that put the Democrats in the White House. When you see this, you can see that the Negro vote is the key factor. And despite the fact that you are in a position to be the determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first, and they put you last. Because you're a chump. A political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republican. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you because you're a chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race. And what kind of alibi do they come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Dixiecrats. Now, back during the days when you were blind, deaf, and dumb, ignorant, politically immature, naturally you went along with that. But today, as your eyes come open and you develop political maturity, you're able to see and think for yourself. And you can see that a Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat in disguise. You look at the structure of the government that controls this country. It's controlled by 16 senatorial committees and 20 congressional committees. Of the 16 senatorial committees that run the government, 10 of them are in the hands of Southern segregationists. Of the 20 congressional committees that run the government, 12 of them are in the hands of Southern segregationists. And they're going to tell you and me that the South lost the war. In the hands of a government of segregationists, racists, who belong to the Democratic Party, disguise themselves as Dixiecrats. A Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat. Whoever runs the Democrats is also the father of the Dixiecrats, and the father of all of them is sitting in the White House. I say it again. You got a president who's nothing but a Southern segregationist. From the state of Texas. They'll lynch you in Texas as quick as they'll lynch you in Mississippi. Only in Texas, they lynch you with a Texas accent. In Mississippi, they lynch you with a Mississippi accent. And the first thing the cracker does when he comes in power, he takes all the Negro leaders and invites them for coffee to show that he's all right. And those Uncle Toms can't pass up the coffee. They come away from the coffee table telling you and me that this man is all right. Because he's from the South. And since he's from the South, he can deal with the South. And look at the logic that they're using. What about Eastland? He's from the South. Make him the president. If Johnson is a good man because he's from Texas, and being from Texas will enable, if Johnson is a good man because he's from Texas, and being from Texas will enable him to deal with with the South, Eastland can deal with the South better than Johnson. Oh, I say, you've been misled. You've been had. You've been took. A couple of weeks ago, while the senators were filibustering, and I noticed in the back of the Senate a huge map. And on this map, it showed the distribution of Negroes in America. And surprisingly, the same senators that were involved in the filibuster were from the states where there were the most Negroes. Why were they filibustering the civil rights legislation? Because the civil rights legislation is supposed to guarantee voting rights to Negroes in those states. And those senators from those states know that if the Negroes in those states can vote, those senators are down the drain. The representatives of those states go down the drain. And in the Constitution of this country, it has a stipulation wherein whenever the rights, the voting rights of people in a certain district are violated, then the representative who's from that particular district, according to the Constitution, is supposed to be expelled from the Congress. Now, if this particular aspect of the Constitution was enforced, why, you wouldn't have a cracker in Washington, D.C. When you expel the Dixiecrat, you're expelling the Democrat. When you destroy the power of the Dixiecrat, you're destroying the power of the Democratic Party. So how in the world can the Democratic Party in the South actually side with you in sincerity when all of its power is based in the South? These Northern Democrats are in cahoots with the Southern Democrats. They're playing a giant con game, a political con game. You know how it goes. One of them comes to you and make believe it's for you. And he's in cahoots with the other one that's not for you. Why? Because neither one of them is for you. But they got to make you go with one of them or the other. So this is a con game. And this is what they've been doing with you and me all these years. First thing Johnson got off the plane, when he became president, he asked, where's Dickie? You know who Dickie is? Dickie is old Southern cracker Richard Russell. Look here. Yes. Lyndon B. Johnson's best friend is the one who is ahead, who's heading the forces that are filibustering civil rights legislation. You tell me how in the hell is he going to be Johnson's best friend? Johnson be his friend and your friend too. No, that man is too tricky. Especially if his friend is still old Dickie. Whenever the Negroes keep the Democrats in power, they're keeping the Dixiecrats in power. This is true. A vote for a Democrat is nothing but a vote for a Dixiecrat. I know you don't like me saying that, but I'm not the kind of person who come here to say what you like. I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not. Up here in the North, you have the same thing. The Democratic Party don't do it. They don't do it that way. They got a thing that they call gerrymandering. They maneuver you out of power. Even though you can vote, they fix it so you're voting for nobody. You're going and coming. In the South, they're outright political wolves. In the North, they're political foxes. A fox and a wolf are both canine. Both belong to the dog family. Now, you take your choice. You're going to choose a northern dog or a southern dog. Because either dog you choose, I guarantee you, you'll still be in the doghouse. This is why I say it's the ballot or the bullet. It's liberty or it's death. It's freedom for everybody or freedom for nobody. America today finds herself in a unique situation. Historically, revolutions are bloody. Oh, yes, they are. They have never had a bloodless revolution or a nonviolent revolution. That don't happen even in Hollywood. You don't have a revolution in which you love your enemy. And you don't have a revolution in which you are begging the system of exploitation to integrate you into it. Revolutions overturn systems. Revolutions destroy systems. A revolution is bloody. But America is in a unique position. She's the only country in history in a position actually to become involved in a bloodless revolution. The Russian Revolution was bloody. Chinese Revolution was bloody. French Revolution was bloody. Cuban Revolution was bloody. And there was nothing more bloody than the American Revolution. But today, this country can become involved in a revolution that won't take bloodshed. All she's got to do is give the black man in this country everything he's doing. Everything. The white man can see this, because if you don't see it, you're finished. If you don't see it, you're going to become involved in some action in which you don't have a chance. And we don't care anything about your atomic bomb. It's useless, because other countries have atomic bombs. When 2 or 3 different countries have atomic bombs, nobody can use it. So it means that the white man today is without a weapon. If you want some action, you got to come on down to earth. And there's more black people on earth than there are white people on earth. I only got a couple more minutes. The white man can never win another war on the ground. His days of war victory, his days of ground victory, can I prove it? Yes. Take all the action that's going on this earth right now that he's involved in. Tell me where he's winning. Nowhere. Why, some rice farmers, some rice eaters ran him out of Korea. Yes, they ran him out of Korea. Rice eaters with nothing but gym shoes and a rifle and a bowl of rice. Took him and his tanks and his napalm and all that other action he's supposed to have and ran him across the Yalu. Why? Because the day that he can win on the ground is past. Up in French Indochina, those little peasants, rice growers, took on the might of the French army and ran all the Frenchmen. You remember Dien Bien Phu? The same thing happened in Algeria, in Africa. They didn't have anything but a rifle. The French had all these highly mechanized instruments of warfare. But they put some guerrilla action on. And a white man can't fight a guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla action takes heart, takes nerve, and he doesn't have that. He's brave when he's got tanks. He's brave when he's got planes. He's brave when he's got bombs. He's brave when he's got a whole lot of company along with him. But you take that little man from Africa and Asia, turn him loose in the woods with a blade. That's all he needs. All he needs is a blade. And when the sun comes down, goes down, and it's dark, it's even Steven. It's the ballot or the bullet. Today our people can see that we're faced with a government conspiracy. This government has failed us. The senators who are filibustering concerning your and my rights, that's the government. Don't say it's Southern senators, this is the government. This is the government filibuster. It's not a segregationist filibuster. It's the government filibuster. Any kind of activity that takes place on the floor of the Congress or the Senate, that's the government. Any kind of dilly-dallying, that's the government. Any kind of pussyfooting, that's the government. Any kind of act that's designed to delay or deprive you and me right now of getting full rights, that's the government that's responsible. And anytime you find the government involved in a conspiracy to violate the citizenship or the civil rights of a people, then you are wasting your time going to that government expecting redress. Instead, you have to take that government to the World Court and accuse it of genocide and all of the other crimes that it is guilty of today. So those of us whose political and economic and social philosophy is black nationalism have become involved in the civil rights struggle. We have injected ourselves into the civil rights struggle, and we intend to expand it from the level of civil rights to the level of human rights. As long as you fight it on the level of civil rights, you're under Uncle Sam's jurisdiction. You're going to his court expecting him to correct the problem. He created the problem. He's the criminal. You don't take your case to the criminal, you take your criminal to court. When the government of South Africa began to trample upon the human rights of the people of South Africa, they were taken to the UN. When the government of Portugal began to trample upon the rights of our brothers and sisters in Angola, it was taken before the UN. Well, even the white man took the Hungarian question to the UN, and just this week, Chief Justice Goldberg was crying over 3 million Jews in Russia about their human rights, charging Russia with violating the UN Charter because of its mistreatment of the human rights of Jews in Russia. Now you tell me, how can the plight of everybody on this earth reach the halls of the United Nations and you have 22 million Afro-Americans whose churches are being bombed, whose little girls are being murdered, whose leaders are being shot down in broad daylight? Now you tell me why the leaders of this struggle have never taken it before the United Nations.
I feel like that's a pretty good chunk to recap. What do you guys think?
Oh, God. Yeah, that is a very long speech. It's like an hour.
Yeah, it's 53 minutes. And I mean, like, honestly, like, one of these days we should probably do an episode where we just go over that speech.
Yeah, a breakdown, stop and start every 10 or so minutes. But I missed all of it by like a few words here or there. Although at one point he did sound like a New York and car salesman. So there was that, but I heard nothing of the wonderful words of the speech.
Well,
Yeah, no, I got some good stuff to respond to that, but whoever wants to go first, I'll go after.
sounds like you want to go first, Rob.
Yeah, I think you should go first.
All right, hey, if I got babies screaming in the background, don't mind them. But
It's
yeah,
fine.
no, there's something that I pulled from that I relate to the interview of Huey P. Newton in 1967 or 68 when he was locked up, and they did the interview, and they were talking to him about, why don't you just run for office? And his response was a lot in the shape of what Malcolm was just talking about. And for those that don't know, that a lot of the Black Panther influence came from Malcolm, and what was happening after Malcolm's assassination really helped form the Black Panther Party and push it forward. But with that being said, what I see from that, and then I compare it to the speech of Huey P. Newton, is talking about political power, right? And what is it that defines like political power, right? the ability to make something act in a certain way, and also the ability to provide a political consequence. And what Huey broke down was in the bourgeois field of electoral politics, the capitalists run the show, right? So um, when a politician doesn't act in the manner in which the capitalists want, they take away capital, they take away funding, they take away some resources that this person may need for their campaign, for their political future, right? That's a political consequence. The people, as individuals, are spread out throughout the imperial core, don't necessarily, but they do in a way. We'll get into that in a second. Have the ability to take away the funding. We don't have capital. We don't own the means of production. Therefore, the political consequences that happen in the political spectrum is going to be a lot different. So, what Huey gets into, and what Malcolm was just talking about with revolution, and what Huey talks about with political consequence, and then utilizing the quote from Mao when he says political power grows out the barrel of the gun. And Malcolm was talking about how all revolutions were bloody or what have you, and that's because when it comes down to it, are the capitalists or those politicians that are doing the work of the capitalists going to do what we want? And if they don't, then what? Then what happens? And this is where the militant aspect of driving the capitalist politicians to a point in which they act like you want them to. And how does that happen? When you have no capitalist power, there's only a means of force to get them either to do what you want or get them to completely out of the way. And that's what I see a lot of what Huey P. Newton was talking about, and what Malcolm X was talking about. This never ends in a way in which the capitalists are going to want it to. There's not a middle ground between the bloodsuckers and those who are being oppressed and used by this system. So that's what I got. A lot of that is like, unfortunately, the contradictions between the two classes aren't one of a friendly nature. So that's exactly what I feel Huey was hitting on when it comes to actual political power, and what Malcolm X was just talking about with it ending in that the civil rights doesn't cut the cake.
Yeah,
Oh,
well said. Well said. Rob Hall has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on something Malcolm said. It's very important. Where Malcolm said how you're still down south, as long as you're south Canadian border. Now, I'm gonna touch on that for a reason. I've seen a lot of leftists make classist, ableist remarks, attacks, towards Appalachian people from the Appalachian Ozarks. Now, I got family from Appalachia. I'm half Appalachian, Scots Irish hillbilly. Now, is there problematic reactionary viewpoints down there? Yeah, there is. I have extended family like that. But holy fuck, you'll find the same shit up here in the Yankee North as well. Look at Boston in the 70s, over Boston. I know Chicago in the 80s had a heavy fucking neo-Nazi KKK bowhead presence in Chicago. And let's think about this. Prior to the post-World War II era, Appalachian Ozarks was a site of the most intense militant labor battles in history. Battle of Blair Mountain, for example, Logan County, West Virginia. So what happened was post-World War II, and this is our fault in a way, the left largely abandoned Appalachian Ozarks. So what happens? A power vacuum opens up. Here comes in the fascists and the far right. Oh, you see, they don't care about you. We do, though. And BRG said this as well, and I agree with BRG on this. Right now, the far right and the fascists have a better collectivist spirit and take care of their own better than we do in the left. And that's a truth that love's got to face and rectify and do better on. Why leave these people to the fascists? Why leave these people to the fascists for instead of, you know what I mean?
It's a really big issue, and it kind of gets into the fact that
And something that has been obvious and well recorded in a Marxist understanding of fascism, that fascism pulls from the same pool of us, because the middle class is not a strong enough class to rely on itself. Literally, Marx, going way back to the 1850s, you can find Marx defining this very state of existence of the middle class. They are a flimsy, weak existence, and everything that they ever want to create, their little petty bourgeois socialism and stuff, is doomed to disintegrate in terror, horror, and Great Depression, And so, what do they need to do that? They need power. And that means that they're going to appeal to both classes. They don't just stick to one. Sometimes they try to. You can certainly see attempts at petty bourgeois, proletarian class collaboration things that usually just turn into weird capitalism and then turns back to normal capitalism. Question by error. Oh God, I got something stuck in my throat. But you know, it's usually this to and fro. The petty bourgeoisie will flip and flop between both, but it wants them both on the ends of their fingers, and they think that they can do so successfully, that they can control the bourgeoisie, even though the bourgeoisie are more powerful than them, and that they can have the proletariat as their little stormtroopers. And so when you see a lot of people in places like Appalachia being pulled into fascism, it's because there's a lot of revolutionary people there that could have been pulled into communism. How do I know this? Let's go look at Appalachia 100 fucking years ago, where it had one of the strongest fucking communist presidents in the United States. How about we go about it like that? Well, you're going to insult Appalachia now? Country music, which 100 years ago was heavily dominated by Appalachian country music, was like mostly communist around those times.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hillbillies formed a thing called rednecks, which was called rednecks for communist reasons. Like,
Yep,
it stresses me out so much when people talk shit on this stuff. And once again, it's find a way to trash the Scots Irish. Like, America loves fucking doing that. They may have made the Irish white, but they still know how to fucking drag us through the mud. And then you'll have fucking Americans tell you that, no, they solved the problems of Irish racism, you see. They made the Irish white on the grounds that we're allowed to drag them through the mud whenever we want to. Yay!
And there's a good book. There's a good book I highly recommend called The Hammer and the Hoe. It's about communist organizing in Alabama back in the 1920s and 30s.
God damn, yeah, I'll add that to my list.
Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. That puts to rest the myth of, oh, these Southerners are just a bunch of reactionaries, and us in the Yankee North, we're progressive as fuck.
Oh, well, Georgia. State of Georgia is one of the most reactionary states today. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. But 200 years ago, oh boy, Georgia was like showing up a lot of the other white states. This is a southern state, mind me. But, first state to elect a black governor, if I remember rightly. First, I think they were also the first state to elect a black mayor. I mean, this did end in slaughter eventually, but tell me what fucking northern state a black person could get fucking elected in the 1840s and not be killed.
People forget.
The KKK was based in Howell, Michigan for like 40 years.
And people forget the Appalachians in the Civil War actually fought the Confederacy. My family are East Tennessee people. We fought the Confederacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma had the most socialist elected officials at one point.
Yes, they did. And Oklahoma is another one of those places that just gets dragged through the mud all the time as like this fucking backwards place. And it's like, it's so annoying. Like, fuck. Like, and it seems people miss the smoking guns. What about states like fucking Idaho and all that are basically just like Mormon strongholds? Like, no one ever seems to touch them. It's always focusing on the states that actually have like larger poor populations and not the states where they're like massive middle class populations that are like full of weird fascist shit. Like, I don't know. And again, also the North, I guess it's even more confusing with America. The way they call it North-South messes in my head, because North normally means the coastal regions in a lot of ways, because California and Washington are usually lumped in with the elite crowds. Although that's even messier because California is kind of a mix and match of fucking, am I the Southwest? Am I the Northeast? I've kind of forgotten who I am anymore. And then Washington's Washington just gets forgotten about. There's that more memorable Washington in the East. I
You
should get
mean the
slapped
one
for
with
calling it more
the
memorable.
you mean the one with the phallic monument to the first president?
The first president that like used to get taken the piss out of because he fucking was not so phallic.
Damn.
Wait, I should
Well,
say
Rob Rich said in
that
the
was
chat
like,
he's gonna have to go in a second. So you got
oh,
any
drop the beat,
parting
brethren.
statements?
Do I what? Do I have any like statements as I go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know I was starting my run for presidency.
Damn.
And yeah, I just thought I would the babies are crying. I can't even think anymore. No, I don't have
winning
anything.
strategy, just like fucking like forget everything the whole time and you'll win okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And then say if people don't vote for you, they're not black to black people. Like that's a winning line I've heard.
Or, like say I don't work for you to the union crowd in Detroit. That was also Biden. Let's not forget that.
Oh,
Most pro-union president since FDR, my fucking ass.
I mean, to be fair, on Biden, the bar was set low by like no union presidents existing.
You're not wrong.
Like fucking FDR wasn't even a pro-union president. He just got fucked by the union so hard he became pro-union, like through the grit of his own teeth.
Well, yeah, and let's not forget that the New Deal wasn't because he wanted to help America. It was to prevent a communist revolution.
Yeah, to show how close social fascists and fascists are. I mean, they are different things, and Roosevelt did technically change to a different thing when doing this. But Roosevelt was not originally a social fascist. He's like a normal fascist. He's like the Hitler kind of guy. Well, more like Mussolini. He actually praised him a few times and said that he wanted America to be like taken over by a dictator. I mean, he didn't say violently taken over, but he did say that America would be better off with a dictatorship, like in the style of Mussolini's Italy. That was 1923. Or it might have been a bit later. But what's it with FDR? Yeah, he was a fiscal conservative by his definition. That was what he called himself in the election he ran and lost in against. Was it Hoover he lost against? Yeah, it was. My audio working?
Yeah.
Oh, I just turned everyone down. Thank you, phone.
Rob left before I could tell him. I think he should ask Vermin Supreme to be his running. I think Rob D. Rich, think about it, people, and Vermin Supreme would make an epic ticket. Just putting that one out there.
I mean, you could put his full middle name.
Just,
Duh. Rob Duh Rich.
Yes.
The D is his mark of shame because he works for Big Daddy. COINTELPRO proven.
Oh my God.
I'm just in like some industrial park. Let's go on a journey.
I feel like we've gotten really off of the topic of Malcolm X, so.
Well, actually, I did have something to say. So, I didn't hear like 97% of this, but I am actually going to pull something from what I heard. I've got attacked. I'm going to use it. So Malcolm, actually, do you know what's funny? This is relating to the bit that Rob was actually talking about. I got like one tiny glimpse of it, and it was something genocide during the reading of it, but I've listened to the speech before, so I know which part it is. So when Malcolm's talking about it, he doesn't just talk about the fact that revolutions have happened in blood. He talks specifically on the US Revolution, which was founded with genocide. We see the cusp of this development and relationship not only how the US continues to maintain itself, but the US state to continue to exist, it must be on the basis of genocide. And for revolution against the US to persist, it has to be through, there's going to be bloodshed. We're not going to, these fuckers ain't going to fucking give us power. I mean, they're killing us when they got it. They're going to kill us when we try and take it. But this also reflects on Palestina. For Palestine to be free, there's going to be bloodshed. There's going to be a lot of warfare. There's going to be the destruction and decimation of the Zionist state. If the Zionism isn't defeated, then Israel's dissemination as a state, in the sense of the way the US disseminated itself, will be through bloodshed and genocide and slaughter. And that's the sort of ground basis on this to and fro engagement. We could talk about this sort of endlessly throughout history. I could fucking ramble for ages about the English and the Normans and all that fucking crap down there, or the Romans in Gaul. But this later presence of it is much way more intense. To the point where what the Americans did in decades, it took the English centuries to do to the Celts. And for what it took the Americans like a century or two to do, the Zionists managed to do it in a matter of a few decades. This is qualitative and quantitative changes, and developments. We see this with imperialists. The U.S. empire both rose quicker and has fallen quicker than the British Empire has. That sort of to and fro. It's like, but get something up to temperature quicker and it'll cool down faster. Yada yada yada, Newtonian laws. But the meat and pudding. Don't know why you would eat pudding with your fucking meat. Eat mash with your meat or something like people do. But the meat and pudding is the fucking these relationships throughout time are massive hinge pins in regards to liberation or to be decimated and genocide. And they're like cornerstones of radical struggle. It's like either America is allowed to persist and the peoples of New Africa, of the native nations, and the individual nations from Europe that compromise these so-called white people, that it will be total decimation of all of those cultures into this amalgamation of whiteness and blackness. And that's for how long that manages to coexist without one side being completely decimated by the other, because nothing lasts forever. Everything's got to reach an end at some point. And if we don't end racism will end one of many groups of people, or all of them. Environmental disaster and fucking nuclear short destruction have a lot of ties to racism as well. And so when we're looking at these dynamics and what's going on, the other option is that we decimate the US and free ourselves. And this is the same issue with Palestine. Yeah, it seems it's somehow more controversial to say this about Israel than it is to say it about the United States. And you say about the United States and you get loads of people's knickers in a twist and they'll stop pissing themselves and shitting everywhere and throwing it around like fucking you insulted their fucking nan or something. But like Israel is like the no-go zone. Can't touch that. And Malcom himself fucking slapped Israel on that shit 1,000,001 times.
Right? Especially in this quote that's up on screen right now. Malcom said, the Zionist argument to justify Israel's present occupation of Arab Palestine has no intelligent or legal basis in history, not even in their own religion. Accurate. Fucking accurate.
There's something that Kwame Ture very accurately pointed out as well.
Mm-hmm.
And got accused of being anti-Semitic for it. And he's like, how am I anti-Semitic when I see Jewish people as an extension of the African people? He was just like, what? I was just pointing out that Jewish people started off black. Like, chill the fuck out, my dude.
Right. If anything, they both were supporting the Jewish Orthodox position on it, which is that Zionism is a straight up violation of the tenets of Judaism. Period. Fucking period.
Yeah, straight up. And what's it? This isn't the first time that the Jewish community has had to criticize what we would now call Zionism. It was actually a precursor to Zionism that, well, I mean, it basically was just Zionism, but it didn't have the name yet. And it was a Jewish nation state that was formed in the United States that committed massive atrocities against African and Native peoples.
When and where?
Yeah,
I hadn't heard about that.
yeah, it's fuck shit. And the Zionists actually like quote it as an inspiring point. So you could actually call it the start of Zionism. So Zionism actually got its start with America, if you want to stretch the definition of start. But fuck, we're dealing with Zionism here. Stretching definitions is what they do.
Including trying to make Zionism out to be a Jewish thing when really its roots are in Christianity. And it was actually started by Herzl, who was an atheist. So, like, make it fucking make sense. It's always been an exploitation of what at the time was fringe religious beliefs that basically amount to Christian prophecy relies upon Zionism because their whole shit about, the end of the world starts with all of the Jewish people across the globe going back to the Holy Land and fucking dying. That's what ushers in their end of time scenario. They literally want all the Jewish people in the world to go back there and die. And it's like, hold the fucking train. Hold the fucking train. What? So it helps to actually look into these things in their historical basis to actually analyze what was going on societally, where they were able to use this absolute bullshit to emotionally manipulate people. And in large part, folks who only got that tip of the iceberg blanket explanation of like, oh, Zionism means your right to return home. No, Zionism is an outright fucking fascist political ideology, period. End of fucking story.
Actually, it's so old. It's proto-fascist initially, and then it got like a software update when Mussolini decided to exist.
Facts.
Yeah, like Herzl. I mean, see, Zionism is this like complicated relationship with the British that I kind of find hilarious. Do they love each other? Do they hate each other? Who fucking knows? Like, genuinely, it's not an easy answer. People might think it's an easy answer. They obviously just like each other.
It's a thin line between love and hate. So the answer to your two questions there is just yes.
Yeah, that is
Since
what it
you
is.
came in just a few minutes ago, I want to ask Secretary of Education Shanti to introduce herself. Because I know that she had some things that she wanted to say about Malcolm X, and we've already been on for almost 2 hours. So.
Yeah, I wanted to say something real quick. In case you don't know, my name is Ashanti May Douglas. I am the Secretary of Education for the United Panther Movement, and I'm also part of the Ministry of Education for the Chicago chapter of the New Era Young Lords. I don't know if y'all touched on Malcolm X's comments about the Congo. Yeah,
No, we
but
have not.
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that because I think it's really, really like important because a lot of cultural nationalists like to use, Malcolm X's thoughts, when he was with the Nation of Islam, and quotes from that era, and just be like misogynistic, very xenophobic asshats. But if they actually looked into his life and actually did their due diligence, because I thought education was a big aspect in, keeping our community self-sufficient, right? If they actually looked into his speeches after he left the Nation of Islam for obvious reasons, he was very internationalist. He was very, very internationalist, especially with the Congo, because I want to give a gentle reminder that a lot of New Africans are direct descendants of the indigenous Congo people of the Congo and Goa basins in Central Africa. So when we hear a lot of the comments say that, we have to worry about our turf here, why should we care about the Congo? And Malcolm pointed that out. Like, they're all correlated because a lot of the people in the Mississippi Delta are direct descendants of the Congo people. And second of all, like, it's very similar scenarios, like with the cotton plantations to the cobalt mining that is happening, that is murdering hundreds upon thousands of Congolese people currently, and the complete disconnect of the Black middle class here in regards to engaging in the genocide against the Congolese people, which is why we cannot ignore the Congolese people. We cannot ignore the genocide against the Congolese people and the genocide against Palestinians, because like it's all interconnected anyway.
Same with Sudan. I think Sudan gets talked about even less than the Congo.
Right. And like,
And the British started the Sudanese crisis with help from the Americans.
Of course. So like when people say
and the
like
French, because the British and the French rule that part of Africa with their militaries.
Yeah.
Well, military detachments. It's a little weirder than just the military. I'd be here for a while trying to explain it, but yeah, they got outfits all over Africa, especially the north, and especially the northeast.
Yeah, especially the northeast, and like like a lot of people once again still want to act like this has nothing to do with us. Actually had a surveillance teaching when my school had our encampment, because I go to the Paul University, and our encampment was the last encampment standing until Thursday when we got raided, standing I think 16, 17 days. It would have been 17 at 10 Central that morning. We had a surveillance teaching, and like halfway through the encampment, and I learned about the fact that the ankle monitors that they use here, especially against poor and working people who are in a more dispossessed condition, especially poor Black and brown and ragged white people, are made in Israel. So once again, that rhetoric of this has nothing to do with this, it does. You just don't see it. And that's the thing. Like, the people have to see what is going on, because, like, they're so isolated from what's going on internationally and are more concerned about their basic necessities, their basic needs, which is also tied to what's happening in the Congo and Sudan and Palestine right now, because our resources is being stolen and weaponized and used for war. I mean, that's not a controversial statement, and Malcolm X was really, really poignant and pushing that. And the culture nationalists don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear
well, there's like whether intentionally or not, because I feel like a lot of these people wouldn't say they intend to be cultural nationalists, but I find that there is like certain elder people in the movement who have this sort of idea of like, well, we have our own issues, we should just focus on them. Like, why are we focusing on this? Palestine has its own struggles, we've got ours. And it's like, it's so arrogant and belligerent. It's like Rosa Luxemburg tears of social chauvinism, where you're just like, well, we're in the imperial core, motherfucker. Like, we don't just have our struggles. That's a part of the contracts that we were forced to sign when we were born. We didn't get to choose it, but you're gonna just sit there crying about how you didn't get to choose it, or are you gonna support the struggle to fucking change it? Like,
exactly.
At the end of the day, we're born in an empire, and every fucking dollar I've had, you've had, or anyone's had in the fucking imperial core is stained in blood. maybe we might want to repay back the blood that's been all over our fucking hands, even though it wasn't intentional. We didn't kill nobody, but we certainly still got to spend the money from the death, whether we knew it or not at the time. Doesn't fucking matter because you still have to spend money to survive here. So we're always still spending off it. So it's that like just necessity anyway, because of the way the proletarian system on an international basis works, and the fact that the majority of proletarian work is done by the third world. You know, the proletariat here has been restricted and chokeholded into the service industry because we don't have the rest of our functional industries. And it's also just general solidarity. Even if we didn't benefit off all those things, what, you're just gonna fucking like turn your brain off to a genocide because people are dying here too? Like,
Right.
people in Sudan are calling solidarity with Palestine, while Sudan has been a year like of terror, like uh like of
Terror.
like absolute bombing and terror, and has been through 10 years of on and off fucking conflict, you know, like, and they're still going about it. But there's people in the first world in their comfy homes with their heating and stuff getting all up in arms because people want to focus more on protests. I just, it's one of those things that kind of comes from that blindness, and I do seem to see it amongst the elders a lot, and we see it with these protests. They are dominated by the youth, and that kind of comes into a problem of like cadre integration. Like, how do we bring older people into thinking more outside of our own purview? Because we see that with like the white petty bourgeoisie and their domination of the movement here. It's all a bunch of old men that don't want to fucking like see to the future, and they'll hold on to the reins of power even though they don't want to see to the future, which is like the scummiest parts of it.
Exactly. Exactly. And keep in mind that, Malcolm X was also comrades um, with Yuri Kochiyama, who is a Japanese American revolutionary. Okay? So, like, political struggle is not isolated at all.
I mean, if you isolate it, you just suffocate it. Like fucking the first world, you think would have learned that lesson by now, but I guess not.
No.
If we just isolate ourselves to the labor aristocracy, we'll at least have a chance of getting the things we want.
No.
Pathetic
No.
excuse. Well, no, they will, because they'll get the middle class things that the bourgeoisie are more willing to get because it doesn't involve actually changing society much, unlike working class needs.
That part.
So it is yes to them because they're bullshit fucking scoundrels. But that's the big thing that Malcolm X heavily spoke against, is the political opportunism that's rampant in the world, like in the first world then, and it's rampant in the first world now. It's a very massive toxic element of like elements in society that consider themselves a part of the Marxist movement. I mean, I have to fucking like wipe my eyes every time I see them call themselves Marxists because like shit gets real blurry. But it's a big problem with the state of things, and it feels after Malcolm made a lot of those criticisms of political opportunism, it's not gotten better. I mean, a lot of these people will claim that they got respect for Malcolm X, but they don't seem to respect the fucking jive of the shit he had to say.
Well, since Shanti brought it up, his speech on the Congo, that's one of the links that I popped in the chat earlier today too.
Oh, put it on.
Shorter. Do you want to pull that one up, Rob?
Malcolm X is autistic as fuck, so shorter will probably still mean 25 minutes.
I'm sorry, which one?
The one that has Congo in the text I put with it.
Malcolm in Africa.
Way up there. Hold on a second. I'll grab the link again from the group chat.
Well, I mean, I have an article that you sent in there. Oh, you mean the group chat, not the Zoom chat. Okay.
Well, I'd popped it in there too. It's the chickens coming home to roost. Malcolm X, the Congo, and nationalism.
That's what I was asking, is which link it was. But this is also a PDF, not a video. Actually, this is just the abstract. This is like
Oh,
an academic thing, but it doesn't even have.
ow.
Wait. There's a link in the link.
Oh shit.
Who the fuck is this Patroshka doll of fucking links?
Well, I mean,
Or
it
Matryoshka,
just took
sorry.
me to a thing that I just like fucking search for it? I don't I don't understand.
I'm not
On the
sure.
plus side though, it's like an Oxford academic thing, and there's a whole bunch of books available for free on here.
Oh,
There's
hey,
probably not all
fucking
that many that we would use. um,
but more
I
reading
doubt that
materials,
they
more
have.
reading material.
Right.
Like, fuck, I'll take all I can get to update on someone because, like, I can corroborate with the more trustworthy sources and also just sort of put it into places like, okay, what can I take? What wheat and chaff can I get?
Yeah, I don't.
Give me a second.
I think a mosquito just bit me in the ass. I don't know how in the middle of an industrial site mosquitoes decided they'll exist. Like they're nocturnal and like pretty much everyone's gone now. And they need blood to survive. And I don't know if there's anything that really lives here, but then also it's nighttime, so I can't see them. They've gone to bed, but there's ticks here as well. And they're just like on this like fence for the bridge, just chilling, and I'm like, where the fuck are they getting the blood from to breed? Like, what? They need blood to actually breed.
Here's a video that's under 2 minutes of Malcolm speaking on the Congo.
Fucking hell, the two extremes. You either get 53 minutes or you get 2 minutes.
And well, there's another one here that's 23 minutes long that I'll pop
Oh,
the
my
link.
joke from earlier worked.
I know.
I said 26. Fuck. He is really autistic though. Like he's a guy who just doesn't speak under fucking 10 minutes. And I love it. It's great. Makes him great for when you're like doing something and you just need like you need someone to be there.
I know.
I said
There's another speech he did about the Congo that's 35 minutes long. So,
So am I
dynamic.
playing the first link or the second link?
take your pick. The first one is the one that's like a minute and a half. The second one is 23 minutes.
Well, I mean, we're already over 2 hours. What do you guys want to do?
I mean, I'm easy. I'm probably
This is
more towards the shorter one.
go as long as we want.
I mean, I'm around. I've known for like 6, 7 hour streams if you really want to push that to the fucking metal.
Well,
You might
Comrade Rob is about to leave. Rob Hall, do you want to like say anything before you go?
Yeah, really good show and all that, and was happy to be able to contribute some of my knowledge on some of this stuff.
We're always happy to have you come contribute it. You're a fucking very knowledgeable and loving comrade.
Thank you, comrade. Yeah, I just got heads to store for my daughter's cat, or cat stuff for her cat.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous that your daughter has a cat. Like, I need a cat. Where's my cat?
I'll send you some pictures and videos. A very tiny kitten. It was found abandoned outside. My son found it and called us up to get
Ginger,
it.
ginger as well, isn't it?
No, it's like grayish type, dark colored fur.
Oh, it's gray. Oh, I'm confusing it with someone else's cat. Well, gray
Small,
cats are
very,
still
very
really
small though.
nice.
Very extremely small. Like I said, it was an abandoned kitten outside. My son
I mean,
found it and called
cat
us to come
color,
get it.
cat color stereotypes are kind of stupid, but gray cats are known for being mellow and chill. Orange cats are just goobers. No other explanation needed. They're just outlandish creatures.
Got jokes about how all the orange cats in the world share one brain cell.
Oh, it's the same with black cats as well, though. But that's a really funny thing because black hair most of the time is actually just really, 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 really dark orange hair. I really want to fuck your brain with how fucking the body works, but basically because everything's based off the color of blood, um, red and black would actually have been more common hair types originally, and they've like red's kind of petered out and lowered in number, but black hair is just still the dominant motherfucker. It will not be stopped. But they're actually very relative hair types, and those people that have like bright orange hair, their hair can randomly change black during puberty and then go back ginger when it's meant to go white when they get older.
But you gotta head out. It's all power, comrades. I'll catch y'all later.
Red salute, Bridger.
Good
Red
night.
salute. All power.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
raised my fist
I
even though you
guess
can't see me.
I guess like I'm leaning more towards the short one myself, but if you guys want to do the whole 23 minutes, then like that's all right. I'm just probably not gonna, you know,
I'm in the middle, so
be
it's
here till
like
the end.
Zen gets to sort of toll the decision because I hate making decisions, so I'm just gonna pass it on.
Okay, how about we start with the 2-minute one? And if there's further detail on that of, the things that Shanti was wanting to bring to the table here today, then we can dive into the longer one.
Well, how about we just ask her,
Or that.
Shanti, do you want us to play the short one or the long one?
The short one, for time's
Okay.
sake.
Okay. All right, give me
Wise
2
choice.
seconds to...
See, I don't make wise choices. That's why I removed myself from this decision.
Yeah, let's do a fucking 6-hour stream. And Rob and I are over here like, we're old. What the fuck?
I've done an 11-hour and 47-minute stream, and I fell asleep for like 2 hours during it, and like had comrades join and take over the stream and keep it running. And then after I woke up, I continued going for another 5 hours. I'm just like a washed up cripple at home, so like I would just stream at some point. I wouldn't really plan it out. I would just sort of go, okay, there's some things I want to discuss, and if things change topics and stuff, who cares? It's basically just like an open podcast model. It's like it's a lot of different things just sort of going on that can work as like inviting entertainment to get people in on several different conversations and to just be like incredibly accessible for workers. So it's not just like, here's 10 serious topic drilled into your brain like I think you're a knobhead. It's more just like free flow discussion, like you're hanging out with mates and things, but with principled Marxist approach towards that kind of thing. And so it's also me applying the like lump an engagement approach also to the way I would do my stream engagement. So it becomes just like free flow. So you guys actually do a similar thing without going on for hours and hours. That's the part I didn't master. Oh, and planning things out. There has been like maybe a couple of streams that I've planned out, and none of it's been like written down plans. It's been more like I've spoken with the people I'm gonna stream with, and we have like a kind of idea of what we're gonna do, and then still go on tangents anyway. Oh yeah.
That's kind of how and why we started this. We were always having these conversations in a group chat with a bunch of our friends. We were like, fuck it, other people might want to partake in these discussions too, right? We should start a podcast. And here we are.
Yeah, I
here we
love
are,
it. Like
3 years and change later.
Yeah.
I mean, so one of
Wild.
the best parts about it when you're someone that likes to just fuck around with concepts all the time is this kind of model allows you to just go like deep with shit, and you have an audience of people that can criticize you as you're fucking talking about shit. An audience is not always the most reliable. You get some lick asses out there. I can't pull a funny face at the camera. My hands are full. But what's it? It's definitely nice to have that active environment, and also, especially when you're doing it with other people. I find streaming alone a fucking nose. so much expectation on you, and like it's just the trying to resist to fucking mindlessly ramble and just hope you find your way through it till the end. Speak what comes to mind and hope it fits.
Yeah. I've done a fair amount of those over the past 3 years, and it's never fun. Even when I tried to like plan it out when it was just myself, like it's a lot harder when you aren't able to like bounce ideas back and forth and like play off of one another. Two people, okay, that's fine, whatever. Ideally, it's more like four or five, like tonight was, but like two people is doable. One person sucks.
God,
Yeah.
even two people is a struggle because someone has to start the brain, like the idea storming, and I'm just like, I'm really good when people start stuff off, then I can roll the ball. I mean, it was like in one of the chats, I like throw out the idea of like meeting to have a discussion on something because I didn't have any ideas at the time. But eventually, like just cooking in my own mind, I eventually came up with some. But like it took me like scrambling about in my brain a little bit to think about it because I'm having to like kick the ball off a bit. Fortunately, because there was a main agenda already being presented by the parties, it was pretty easy for me to go, wow, I might as well ride off of this in its relations to the current political work that me and Shanti have been up to ourselves with the encampments.
Oh yeah.
What's it? The current like move forward in solidarity with Palestine is like absolutely beautiful if it keeps surviving, but like holy fuck, especially in America, people need to be steadfast and like stand the fuck up to the police. People in the UK need to start learning how to be radical enough that the police would even be worried about them, but that's a different question. Encampments here aren't as spicy yet. They will get that way, but some problems.
Right. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit play.
Congolese have been massacred by white people in the Congo for years and years and years. And if the shoe is now on the other foot, only thing I can say is it's like chickens that always come back home to roost.
Do you personally feel, though, that there's some shame or involvement here or some guilt associated with the killing of other human beings?
I think that the white people should be ashamed of the deplorable situation that has been existing in the Congo, which is not the fault of the Congolese, but which is the result of instigation by European powers who are fighting each other over the mineral wealth of the Congo. And now to make it appear that the Congolese themselves are criminals or brutes because they're reacting to these injustices that they've been victimized by is again ducking the question.
Shambi is the murderer of Lumumba, who was the rightful prime minister of the Congo. Shambi is the man whose forces fought against the United Nations forces and against the United States, and despite this criminal past of Shambi, now the United States is backing Shambi, who has hired South African mercenaries who are hired killers to disrupt the peaceful efforts of the freedom fighters from Stanleyville to make the type of country there that they want. And it is this American support of Shambi, actually, that's at the root of the whole problem.
The United States first placed financial sanctions on Iran back in 1979.
Gotta love that it goes into fucking 60 minutes.
Right. Oh, you're muted, Kara.
Fuck you, COINTELPRO. But the fucking what's it? I forgot even 60 Minutes still existed. Like they're so useless. I'm surprised they have a viewer base. Fucking, I'm never surprised that NBC, CNN, or Fox exists. But 60 Minutes, who fucking gives a shit about? Fucking 60 Minutes of wasting your time. We'll try and criticize Trump, but then end up licking his ass.
I mean, that applies to a lot of them, especially at Fox too.
Man, I have some things to say about fucking liberals already in this election season, and all I can say is I'm glad that we're marching on the Democratic National Convention because holy fuck, they're really acting like Joe Biden is any better than Trump on any issue, and he's fucking not. But we're getting off topic though. I know that Shanti wanted to talk about the chickens coming home to roost, and um I guess the question is like, did that video address what you wanted to address or no?
Did
Are
we
you
lose you?
asking me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it did. It did.
Okay, cool.
That video says enough when chicken heads come to roost. Enough said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
Malcolm
think she
X.
All right. Well, okay. I guess then I guess if that's the case, then I can go on my little fucking rant here. But like, I have already been like seeing the liberals on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, just like trolling, even like, Green Party posts like, oh my God, that's a vote for Trump. And then like somebody's like, oh, well, I don't even vote because it doesn't fucking mean anything. And they're like, that's a vote for Trump. And like, I'm just like gonna start going into these comment sections and being like, oh, you're voting for Biden? That's a vote for Trump. Like, what in the fuck, dude?
Oh my
Like,
God. I mean, to be fair, that one's at least a little more accurate if you're voting for Biden. I mean, like, you're voting for genocide, and I mean, that's why everyone keeps saying you shouldn't vote for Trump, which, yeah, correct. You shouldn't vote for Trump because of genocide, but voting for Biden also is a vote for genocide. So, like, what's your argument then? Like, are they gonna like moralize their way out of an ethic conundrum? Because that seems to be the only way the bourgeoisie can deal with such a situation. Let's stop being little bitches about morals that don't match up to proletarian morals because they come from a completely different class position and have had their ass wiped by golden fucking spoons at this fucking rate because the silver spoon wasn't good enough. Like, genuinely, like these people are higher mighty liberals. They're one of the reasons why like a lot of people in Appalachian and like in general southern places, as they're told to think of these people as the left, which they are not. We do not like the way they are associated with us. Please stop associating with us, right-wing petty bourgeoisie. Shut the fuck up. But that aside, a lot of working class people in those regions get put off from like left-wing stuff in general because they're told that these liberal elites are like the left. And like this is what this ends up representing. It's this fucking like top-down like bullshit like elitism where even when like a lot of working class people will still be voting for Biden, they'll still find some way to point to the areas where there have been those working class people vote in parts of the South, in parts of fucking Appalachia for their blue team still, and still find a way to call them all morons and say they're all a bunch of dumb Republicans. Like, because it's not their quarter, so like they don't give a shit about any of these people. Why the fuck would they? Like it's more in it for them to just keep perpetuating the same fucking old divides and keep fucking lying about the peoples in these regions, and then the right wing literally just has to go, oh, look, this is what these people think of you. Like, why the fuck are you going to listen to anyone who's on the left and they link it up like that? And who are you to know any better? And there's a lot of Marxists that as well act like liberals because they don't take that step back and go, well, yeah, why would they know any better? Which I feel is like odd basic Marxist shit. I don't know if like you don't know that aspect of being a Marxist, there's something wrong with you. I mean, if you don't know that aspect of being a fucking human being, I think you need a fucking reality check. But you know,
Right. Because, like, honestly, at this point, the best argument that the Dems can make back against that shit is like, well, Trump wants to do genocide here and we just want to do it overseas. And it's like, you're still just as big of a fucking monster.
God, I've had middle class, like upper middle
well, I
class
mean,
trans people,
sorry to
like
interject here, Cara, but like you and Shanti have both talked about transgenocide, especially you though, and how that is not any fucking different under Biden as it was under Trump. Trump just said the quiet parts out loud. That's the only difference. thing.
Yeah, and I've actually had some like upper middle class, like pretty much verging on upper class trans people, like turn around and tell me like, oh well, I'm gonna put my needs first. Like I need to stop it here. The genocide in Israel is gonna happen anyway. They did swallow their words and move back from it, like most people I've engaged with, but there's been some that have stood by it and have been like right stubborn little assholes. And it's because of that privileged mindset. Like when you're so privileged, you just think individualistically. It's like, well, this is happening already. Well, Biden's already here, and but Trump comes in, then trans genocide happens, and that genocide's gonna happen. No one knows if Trump will continue allowing Israel to do this. I mean, he might not. He's like really fucking anti-Semitic, but then he's also like aligned with the evangelicals. It is like a hit or miss, hot of the pan. Voting for Trump is not about whether or not he's going to end Palestine or not, because you shouldn't vote for him because he'll still do genocide here, regardless of whether he'll end that, and regardless of whether Biden will or will not do trans genocide, which I mean, he's done nothing to stop it. It's still happening while he's in power, so I don't know why him continuing being in power would stop it. But you know, Palestinian genocide will be on the table regardless, and so it's just like either way, if you could get the steel man argument out of it, which you'd be lying to yourself. It still doesn't work. You can't vote for either one because they both have fundamental genocides they want to enact. And Trump isn't just trans genocide. I think I've always been trying to talk about to people because I feel like it gets forgotten a lot. Is Trump also tried to wipe out Black history from schools with the
Yes.
1776 project. Like his reaction to the 1640 or was it 1620? I can't remember.
I
The
thought it was
project
1619.
1619, that's the one. 1619. I'm like allergic to odd numbers, so I always figure them out last. The joke on my OCD. But the 1619 project was a really, really fucking progressive project. Like in a lot of ways later than it should have been, in many ways ahead of its time. Pretty progressive as far as like bourgeois society is going. It was bringing in a lot of stuff about the history of slavery and just the genocidal nature of the U.S. state's creation. Mwah, magnifique. Great educational materials. And so Trump's reaction to it was, and he wrote a lot of the fucking stuff in this. This is the thing. He's actually like a fascist intellectual. It's a weird thing to say, but like Trump, I guess, ta-da, a man of many weird tricks, like drink bleach or protect you from the coronavirus. But the what's it?
Or like looking at the fucking eclipse.
He's
That
a
was like the
scientist. He's
highlight of his
experimenting.
presidency.
But like fucking um he's actually a fascist intellectual in his own right. I mean, he's not the smartest guy ever, but he's not a moron either. And like, kind of plays people a fool because of the way he acts like a tosser. He also thinks he's smarter than he is, though. So like, he's a dumbass in that regard, which is always the funniest thing. It doesn't matter how much you know. If you think you're smarter than you actually are, you always look like a tosser. It's amazing. People that are up themselves, and he's very up himself. I mean, he's up himself so far that his head actually enters his ass and then comes out of like one of those like holes you get in your throat when you smoke too many cigarettes, and it like lines his vocal cords up like perfectly that his voice was restored. Fucking cures for these kind of things these days. But the he wrote a lot of the stuff in that was basically just eroded Black history. It was like rather than like returning it to pre 1619, they decimated Black history in the education system. Well, attempted to, but it's still like up for implementation. They haven't given up on it.
Well,
Like
now it's
so.
pretty much gone to like a fight at school board meetings and shit.
Mhm.
Honestly. So
But this
yeah, I
is
mean
why communists
that's
need to
still
try and get
playing
on
out, but
school
there's a lot of
boards.
school systems that have like, completely banned anything that they deem critical race theory.
Oh
Like,
God, yeah. I mean, critical race theory is one of those as well, where it's like kind of late, too late compared to where it should have been cropping up, and then kind of ahead of its time, but it was also like mediocre for how the right wing reacted to it. It's basically just that structural racism exists. That's all critical race theory is. That's all it is. If I'm being reductive, there's a lot more to it technically, but if you wanted to boil it down to someone, just define structural racism and you've saved yourself like quite a lot of fucking arguing, trying to explain the more complicated aspects of it to white people, because obviously there's a lot more details to it, but like critical race theory just looks at how structural racism has affected the development of different quote unquote racial groups. It also criticizes the concept of race, hence putting it in that sort of framing. You know, as like being a concept that truly exists, you know, seeing it as just an oppressive structure that's based on class. Like it's got a lot of liberal elements, and it's got some elements that are kind of like neo-Marxist, where it's like it's not quite revolutionary, like, oh ha, let's go, you know, revolt against the white supremacist system, but it is like it still criticizes it in a way that's, you know, um it's like scientifically in depth, I guess the way of putting it. It's my way of not sounding like an asshole and going very dialectical.
Way to call out Rob Rich.
Quantifiable amount of dialectical materialism packed within its sandwich.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Yeah, no. So I guess since I touched on it, I do want to like bring up to anybody that may still be watching that um there's a lot of parallels already between 1968 and 2024. And just to make that further, the Democratic National Convention is in Chicago. And in my opinion, it should be and hopefully will be organized around in the way that the 1968 convention was, but with the experiences that came with that.
You know, what's interesting though is 1968 at that time was being related to the 30s, just like we are now. George Jackson's famous positions on fascism did not come from nowhere. You know, like if we're to talk about a lot of the, I'll let the truck go past. If we're gonna talk about like a lot of the big issues regarding like the rise of fascism around that time, you know, not just that year alone, but the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. I mean, we could even just look at California with Governor Jerry Brown. We could look at the what's it, the rise of Ronald Reagan. We can look at the fucking also actually the rise of Jimmy Carter. A lot of people think Jimmy Carter's this like lefty and all that. He's like, no, he's like a Southern Democrat. What the fuck you on about? Like he's a fucking Dixie. He's goddamn fucking Dixie, and y'all think he's like some lefty liberal. Oh God, America is so fucked in its political system, and the only middle class people believe this. What, like, poor Americans do not like fucking even bother with it. Like, I wonder how many of them actually even think about which party's the left wing or the right wing one, because they both just sound like jackasses. Because a lot of people like that here. A lot of people don't really think too much about whether Labour, Lib Dems, or Conservatives are right or left. They just think they're all a bunch of loudmouth wankers. So, like, you know, it's only middle class people that could sit there and like, oh, Jimmy Carter, he's like a socialist or like a social democrat. He's got my interests at heart. He really protects the people. And he's like some fucking like southern farmer that couldn't give a flying fuck and like brought neoliberalism to America, but everyone thinks it was Ronald Reagan because he like took credit for it. And just like everything Jimmy Carter did that Ronald Reagan took credit for, he got the credit for it because fuck you. I mean, it allows everyone to then make a sub story about Jimmy. He's like the Gregor Strasser of fucking the Democrats, I swear to God, or of American politics.
See this outward appearance of what the media is put on the show for, which is look at Jimmy go. He's old as dirt and he's still out here like throwing down on helping build houses with Habitat for Humanity. But what they don't realize is that's not even a socialist thing. They are not providing housing for people for free. Habitat for Humanity is just its own lending agency that you still end up with a 30-year mortgage with to pay for your fucking house. So is it really charity work? Let alone qualifying as a socialist like mutual aid? No.
I mean, they made a profit, so I guess it is charity work.
That part. That part. But
Oh, the Christians taught them well. God, the Christians that actually invented charity would be fucking, they must be like rolling in their graves right now, though, because like charity was originally invented to be completely detached from any monetary benefit, any sense of gain, and it was meant to be directed at ending issues, not endlessly profiting off of it. Now, unfortunately, it was also Christians that changed charity into other stuff, but like that's a conversation for the upper and lower classes of the Christian community in that regard. But the living in a Protestant country, yeah, like they sometimes even invented their own versions of Christianity to get past Christianity's hatred of capitalism. That's why they
yeah,
did it. Everyone thinks it's about the wives still. Oh my God, he already killed like others and the Pope didn't kick him out. Like, and if the Pope kicked him out, then he'd have just started a new one anyway. He left because he wanted to do capitalism. Like the monarch of England is said to have been the first capitalist by some people's accounts. And actually the term bourgeoisie comes from the Anglo-Saxons. Now you might be like, Storm, you're lying to me. That's a French word. Well, like a lot of things around here, it's a fucking mixed pie of shit, and it originates from the Anglos. It's actually the Burgass or the Bourgeois, which means burger man, and yeah, that just means like man of the middle, because they were middle class back in the day. Oh, the old days. Oh no, I sound like the petty bourgeoisie now. Someone shoot me. But the what's it? Fucking what's it? Yeah, the bourgeoisie actually comes from Burgess, or you can call them Bergamon, which sounds like the Pokemon equivalent of like hamburgers. So I mean, that's always the funniest thing to go about it. Burgermon, gotta kill 'em all. Coming for you, Jeff Bezos. Too.
oh goodness, my brain's trying to backtrack now because there was
Oh,
something that I had to say about something you were talking about a moment ago, but then you went into
gee,
Burger Man shit, and my brain went.
was it about the what's it? Oh shit. No, I had it and I just lost it when I went to think about it. That is so fucking bullshit. Because it was something I said before that was about like
It was somewhere between Reagan and um, Carter and Burger Man. I don't know. It's gone. Whatever.
oh, what's it? The relationship between the 30s, the 60s, and today, maybe?
Fuck. There was something you said like right after that. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
we could probably just check on the live feed and like go back.
It's all good. If it if it needs to, it'll boomerang back. Um,
It
yeah,
better because you have fire stuff to say. I'm sorry for fucking getting caught up with the Bergamon. I've not caught any yet. Fucking hard bastards to catch.
okay. It's another one of those weird tidbits of knowledge of like, wait, what?
Yeah, language is a fuck, and Marx and Engels purposefully just mixed words up. Engels himself will switch between using bourgeois and burgess whenever he's talking about the English bourgeoisie, just to be a funny fucker. Like they are show-off intellectuals. That's the thing. It's one of those things that I get in some arguments with some of the more like trad metal types and like the oh Marx the holy blessing. Whenever I criticize Engels for his like weird eugenic positions, where he goes on about like the brain size of Native Americans and Europeans and Aryans because we had meat and milk, and the certain group of natives they were vegetarians, so small brain, and I'm like no, because they come from people who also grew off meat and milk. Because all of humanity comes from that ilk. We're omnivores. People
Yeah.
grew to live vegetarians as exceptions to that rule, and it wouldn't take you that way. That's why vegetarians today are able to live fine and not have shrinky brains. Is he okay? Like, has he ever heard of foraging before? Like, I'm pretty sure he has, given that he's like a pretty big name in anthropology as far as Marxism goes. Like, fucking, sometimes he makes dipshit positions and people won't accept it. They're like, no, he's just on about like material development and what it affects. And I'm just like, so he has like fucking I don't even. But like people will also do it about how they're high and mightyism. They were fucking like the vulgar use of like aristocratic language and shit like that. Marx and Engels are not easy to read compared to like Lenin or Stalin or especially Connolly. Fucking Connolly's like the easiest theorist to read. You could be fucking like you could know half the alphabet and still understand what Connolly's fucking saying. Like guy couldn't read or write until he was married and his wife taught him when he was like finally like moved to Ireland. And he like ended up being one of the best theoretical writers that ever fucking blessed Marxism. Certainly ever blessed the Irish Marxist movement. We've definitely had some fucking amazing fucking writers though since. Some that are arguably like in certain aspects even better just because they're more developed, but like, never as digestible. Like Connolly is like the king of digestion as far as the Irish Marxist movement goes. And with but you ever, Seamus Costello and fucking um what's it, Top Power and folk them like that are just like icons. Fucking death of Top Power was like fucking death of a lot of fucking like principled aspects of struggle in regards to the inner aspect of things, like fucking shit started to crash down pretty fucking bad. Wasn't instantly, but we have this problem with the Irish movement where we get way too latched onto leaders and then just fuck up as soon as they die. Like 16 fucking people died in an execution, our leaders of the revolution in 1916. The 16 leaders is what they call it, is because of the year. Um, so the leaders of that revolution, all of them being executed, that led to the Irish struggle just deciding that now's the time to completely fucking get absolutely railroaded by the petty bourgeoisie. Like, Connolly actually warned about this. I think it was 1913. He did talk about the fact that, like, basically like if Ireland does not have a socialist driven revolution, doesn't beat back bourgeois reaction from the Irish bourgeoisie, like it will fucking destroy everything. What's the first thing that the Irish petty bourgeoisie does in retaliation to the communists? They sign the Participation fucking Act with the British. It splits the fucking 6 counties into so-called Northern Ireland and creates the Free State. We still happen to have the king as the fucking head of state, which is, such an amazing Irish republic. Sure, this won't cause any problems in the future.
They did themselves in the foot with that one. Fuck.
It's actually like a point of criticism that I'll have with like some Marxists and the way they talk about Palestine. Like in the response to people like making up loads of lies about Hamas rather than showing like critical support for Hamas and like still being willing to show that we have some issues ourselves with them, but we support the fact that they're fighting a liberatory struggle in coalition with groups that we can then show that have a lot more principled understanding of things and show the communists that are active in this struggle. Because like too many people then start like throwing their hat in and it's all of a sudden like it reminds me of the way people were with Syria, where the Syrian stuff's going on, so now everyone is all of a sudden a Syrian Arab in the Syrian military and we all need to do salutes to fucking like Syrian national anthem and crap as fucking memes, like, to the point where they're like fetishizing a state that's ran by a fucking Frenchy fucking Arab bourgeois fucking dipshit who's just as bad as his dad for neglecting the oppressed people of his fucking country. Like, he was terrorizing people. The Arab Spring didn't happen out of nowhere. The CIA can't just cook revolutions up. It got managed to fucking take over many aspects of fucking like certain organizations. But that spring started because fucking he was actually fucking doing pretty nasty shit to his people. Just not the Arab people as much as it was the Assyrians and the Kurds. But, fuck ever thinking about that. Like, do people think the Kurds have a death wish with the US? Like, they don't just side with them out of nowhere. It always is they get pushed to them. That's what happened with Iraq. It's what happened with Syria. But no one wants to think about that. It's just, oh, the Kurds, they're betraying Assad while he's fighting ISIS and they're siding with the United States. And it's like, no, Assad tried to genocide them. Why are they gonna go, oh yeah, this guy's gonna have our best interests in hands. Let's side with them. And yes, the US has betrayed them before, but the US hasn't necessarily tried to wipe them out. So like the US technically isn't on as bad pages as maybe like Saddam Hussein or the fucking Assads, both of them in this regard. But people don't think about that, and it's like Hamas. Hamas has slaughtered communists. They've slaughtered civilians. There's problems with Hamas, but Hamas is on the side of the Intifada right now, and that's positive, and I respect that, and that's my critical support. There's problems with Hamas. They're bourgeois revolutionaries of some shade or ilk, and they have some conservatism problems. There's issues with them. There's maybe smaller bourgeois groups that might be more principled than them, but I'm not Palestinian, and I don't know every single group that's like entailed in this in detail. Some groups I only know by name, other groups I've never heard of. And in the case of Hamas, I've heard a hell of a lot and I've studied a lot. And there is a lot of core problems with them. I mean, one, Israel military itself actually admitted that they funnel money into it because they know that the image of Hamas as an Islamist terrorist group makes the PLO dominated West Bank get more distant from Gaza. Um, and they've that's their psychological warfare division that's setting up things like that. Like I know how this runs. The British has this exactly same department. It wouldn't surprise me if the Israelis based it off that or off the American iteration of it, because the MI5, MI6, and the OSS relationship would have already cross-developed these kind of things because that's the way it was around those days. But you know, we need to we need to show the kind of like dynamics of this. Do better to learn more of the organizations that exist in the Intifada so we can show an array and show that this is a unified solidarity movement of the Palestinian people. But also, we need to push our guys to the forefront. There's like active communists out there that are out there in the struggle that like we also should be like highlighting the work of, because I feel like the PFLP and the DFLP don't get mentioned all too much, especially the DFLP. But PFLP, the oldest out of the two groups, but they're basically about the same age. They
Yep.
go back 60 years, and a lot of people don't know about them.
Yeah,
PFLP nearly goes back 70.
more education about for people to understand that there is balances there when it comes to like the political perspectives of the people in Gaza. But going back to what you were saying a moment ago, of being able to give critical support comes down to literally just having a proper analysis of the situation, because the primary contradiction they're dealing with right now is fucking survival. Fucking survival. You have to survive if you're going to deal with the cultural issues that need to be changed, and levels of knowledge and ethics raised. Where it is there, because the homophobia is a secondary contradiction. For example, as far as
Oh, and they're not slaughtering us anyway. I mean, definitely some Islamist groups have killed homosexuals, not denying that, but like the average Palestinian is not killing homosexual people. Even people that are Muslims that don't like it, they tend to be like, I respect your ability to exist as a human being, but I think what you're doing is like sinful. And it's just like, okay, fair enough. Like, if you're gonna respect my right to exist, you're not gonna be a bigot towards me. Believe what the fuck you want to believe about me, because you're still gonna show me the love and respect. You're still gonna greet me with like positivity, because that's what I've gotten from Muslim people. I don't know what anyone else has gotten. Actually, do you know what? most of my interactions with like the like fucking like Muslim folk them has either been neutral or positive. There's a Muslim bloke who's been running the market stall, the indoor one, for like decades, and he's seen me about a lot. I've probably bought a bong off him before. But the when I first time I went in when I'm trans, I didn't even need to say anything. I didn't have to correct him at all or anything. And like, um, I can't remember what it was he called me, but it was something that was like way nicer than someone who just feels like they're having to like excuse, like make an excuse for like I'm gonna use the correct pronouns to avoid it being a bad part of his business. It was a sweet way of approaching she her, and it was like, wow, nice. You don't get this from white people. Usually just mate you. And I hate the mate one because like so there's two types of people. There's people that mate everyone, and then there's people that think mate is an exclusively male term in the UK. That's kind of died down a bit, but blokes exist, and blokes don't get software updates as often as women do. That's the only thing I can seem to conclude, because there's just like a lot of men that act like it's fucking 1922, and there's a lot of men that act like it's 1950, and then there's this type of men that act like it's like 2002, and mate is just a male. Do you don't call your friends that are girls mates. Like I got attacked for it when I got on the bus as a kid, and I called the female bus driver. I said thanks, mate, and my brother like started fucking like starting something about it, and I'm like, what?
It's kind of like dude here, you know, like some people see that as a very gender neutral thing. Hell, I see that as like a neutral thing across the board. I have called my coffee pot dude when in frustration, like, dude, why won't you fucking work right? But there's some people who see dude as a strictly like male term, and like I am
Yeah,
a woman.
here it's seen as like a male thing because people will usually say like dudettes as a joke to say women.
Yeah, but even that is like so incredibly old school to say do that. It's like that's a boomer generation
Yeah, but
lingo.
our society has already been decaying for a while. You guys are just like catching up to where we've been since like the 1950s. We were still rationing into like the 60s. We didn't do so well after the war. Oh well, I actually it was mainly because we were using all the food that we actually had that could have stopped us from rationing to compete with the American imperialists. But don't tell anyone I told you that part. That's supposed to be the secret bit. Um,
No surprises there though.
Yeah,
None of them.
no, they were like, fuck, a lot of parts of the world are going to need aid right now, including ourselves. So what we'll do is we'll take some of the American aid, but we'll try and limit as much of it as we can. And then rather than relying on America to help us maintain our colonies, we'll use all the fucking like food that we stored up during the war when we had actually enough food to feed our own country and the countries that we caused starvation-based genocides in during the war. Because Churchill had a plan to harvest as much food as possible to then do that competition. And that's how the British still have a lot of control over Greece and Cyprus today. That's how you
That's
say Cyprus, by the way. Like they don't do the C's in Greece, they do the K's in Greek. And Greek is the Roman like Latin name for it. They don't call it Greek in Greek. Wordception.
Rob, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Goodness.
I'm always here, always waiting.
Okay, that sounded kind of creepy.
Always watching Wazowski. Always watching.
Oh my
God,
God.
I haven't seen Monsters Inc. in ages.
Has everyone's brains left the chat?
Yeah, kind of.
What's it though? I like given the cusp of the situation, the sort of international crisis we're in, Malcolm X is like sort of a very, very acute example that we like really should hold up towards in this regards. I mean, in many ways, also step forward and improve on the pitfalls of the Matt and them as well. It's not like like anyone, like ourselves as well. Malcolm X wasn't perfect, but there's too many people that will find a revolutionary, see he's not perfect, and deny of a learning from their teachings, and this shit's just fucking stupid. Like, I don't like throwing around the term stupid too much. I don't like its origins, but this shit fucking dumb. Like, you're gonna start being like that. Well, Stalin's technically a fucking pedophile. He married a 14-year-old when he's 36. There you go, pedophile. So, I mean, you're gonna fucking throw away all your Stalin books now?
Didn't know that, but no, we can criticize him for that fuckery while still acknowledging, good things that he did.
Yeah, I mean, like, Mao was like a sex freak in like all the worst ways.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know, but
Yeah, there's like a lot of bad things you can say about comrades, except Lenin. Lenin just seems to like avoid doing really bad things. I don't know what the fuck's with that. Like, be like Lenin. That's my advice to people. Lenin just seems to fucking like there's things you can criticize about him, but it's like, oh, he kind of used the wrong kind of terminology here, or oh, it would have been better if he put this in like quotation marks to show his sarcasm. I mean, there are some points where he's a bit of a chauvinist dickhead, but like a lot of the times when it's criticizing Lenin, it's nitpicking. It's like you can't turn around and go, oh, this whole thesis is a lot of shit or stuff like that. It's usually like, well, there's a chunk here where he starts talking like a jackass, but like most of the stuff here is pretty decent. Like, guy's got his shit fucking pretty much together when it comes to it, usually.
right. That and Katz loved and trusted Lenin, which tells me he understood consent and boundaries, which speaks volumes. So
I think you have
that,
2 cats.
I love the pictures of Lenin with Kat.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like, fucking indoctrinating people into Marxism, one Lenin cat picture at a time.
Right. Solid method.
I don't know. I think that I'm gonna get off here though. I'm kind of just like tired.
Maybe.
Old people problems.
Old people problems.
I have fibromyalgia, so I can like join the old people problems thing because you age like hyper quick. God, I'm gonna feel funny when I feel 50.
Looking forward to 50.
Like I
The look
bumped
on
into
your
someone.
face when you said that was just like one of like sheer like a combination of like defeat and horror.
That's that's the inspiring spirit of fibromyalgia that you've just been introduced to. Like this is the wonder. This is the day in day out. This is the look in the mirror in the morning. Well, actually, you have to get there first. Like I don't laugh at that, but like that's an actual conundrum. Like fuck, and hope you don't pass out again because fuck you with chronic fatigue that never ends.
That part.
Did it, did it, did it, did it, did it. But
Right.
I had like a funny experience in like an endearing way because it's one of those like solidarity moments where you find someone else with fibro, and it's like I bumped into a cleaner who's like absolutely lovely at the hotel. I mean, I, I found that the like everyone who's a cleaner I got along with at this travel lodge, and it's just the manager who was a bitch. Funny that. Um, I got in an argument with that manager at one point in the end, but that's a different story. I bumped into this cleaner in the hallway, and she asked me why I was on my crutch, and like I told her because of fibro, and she's like, "Oh, I have fibro too." I mean, not as bad as what you've got going on, but yeah, I know the suffering, and I'm just like, no, that's the vibe. Yeah, she just read me like a motherfucking book, and was just like, "Yeah, no, you're fucked."
Right. It's the condition of every fucking thing hurts.
Oh
And
God. Everything hurts and then the brain don't think. Although, what's it? Interestingly, amphetamines are said to do a lot medically regarding helping with fibro. So hopefully when they finally prescribe me my amphetamines, I get some help with that. See, I say hopefully as if I don't know, but I already know, and it does. Experimentations, kosher maybe.
yeah, sadly, we're the ones that they always go
I
to
was
for.
prescribed them a while back, but like it was ones that I didn't like, but they did still help with the fibro. So yeah, ADHD medication can help your brain, can also help with chronic neuropathy and other weird problems with your fight or flight response system. I don't know. There's not enough studies in this stuff. We need more studies, but
Facts. There's a lot of things out there that help significantly that you know don't get as much research put into them as they should.
I
But
mean
that's
the other four forms of dementia out of the five forms of dementia. I mean everyone goes on about Alzheimer's, but there's five different types of dementia. Like Alzheimer's only one of them.
yeah.
Oh, and I mean it's so bad to the point there's people that'll still call it its incorrect name and still use the one that's considered slander, which is the multiple personality disorder. What's it? Dissociative identity disorder and other specified dissociative disorder. There's a few other things that can cause alters. The actual sort of like politically correct name would be systems rather than multiple personality people. It kind of like makes it this sort of scary thing because I mean it's not like all of them are all in control at the same time. I mean, there can be ludicrous events like that, but that's not the norm.
My brain just went straight for United States of Terra. That show really shows, an exemplary case of like, holy shit, the shit that you have to deal with them. You know, I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
seen it. Anywho, I don't know. We are so rambling at this point, so we should probably at least wrap things up and end the live. Rob took off, so we don't have music for the end of it because I don't have it saved on my phone.
Neither do I.
Shit happens. But all right. Everybody who joined us tonight, if you're still watching, thank you. Have a good night. We'll see you next week. All power.
Have a good night. See you next week. All power.